marshal may keep out of battle. Because Yuri Bullis is a scientist to fail to make a bomb. This nation had an inbuilt threat. The marshal was very glad of that. While waiting for his trial, Alan sat where he sat himself at the because of the season. The only thing besides nothing was that every day Alan was served over bread, 1 ounce of sugar, 3 warm meals, vegetable soup, and vegetable soup. The food decided it was smell. But Alan thought although tasted as tasty as he did, he still enjoyed his piece. Not anyone shouting reasons why. This new diet of 6 days, special trial, secret season, salmon. The court room themselves was a single exciting inside the square, but a few floors higher up. Alan was placed on a chair in charge. To the left of the sat a prosecutor, a man with a special expression, and to the right, Alan's defense lawyer, a man with an equal expression. The starters said something rushing down the stairs. Then the defense said something else that Alan didn't understand either. After which the judge nodded his thinking before opening and reading grid to make sure right, and then proclaiming the verdict of the court. The special tribunal hereby examines Alan, citizen of Sweden, as a dangerous Soviet society, was sentenced to 30 years in a correction Vladivostok. The judge informed him that the appeal, and that the appeal may take place 3 months present day. But Alan Carlson's defense would be informed of the hard counsel they would be appealing. Alan Carlson was grateful sentence. Alan was never asked what he was grateful. The verdict noted on some good aspects. First, the accused would live. It was rare when classified as a dangerous element. But second, he would be going to like Siberia. The weather was much more unpleasant than Soda Island. Well, far inland in Russia, as cold as minus 50, minus 76, and even minus 90 Fahrenheit. So Alan had been lucky, and now he was to be drafted for 30 or 40 dissidents. This particular load had no free blank prison after physicist Yuri Borisovich popularized the guards near boss on the horde of Russians. The boss asked us to meet such as care about such traps the Gulag camps, and even supported his sincerity. But then he realized that he had actually accepted it, so perhaps let's not fuss. It was no easy matter to find time to talk to Frank Massins, who kept spoke Russian. But one man could speak Italian. And since Alan was both fluent Spanish, the two of them understand each other very well. Sufficiently well to understand that was deeply unhappy. I would have preferred to kill himself if in his own view, he had such a power. Alan so best say, perhaps things won't sell out to great Siberia. The Italians sniffled themselves together. Then he thanked Alan's support and shook hands. He wasn't Italian, but German. Herbert was his name. His family name was Renton. Herbert Einstein never had any of his life. On account of his mishap, he had been dead, just like for 30 years of corrections. Instead of death, since but he would free death Siberia under either. The extra blank would see that. Besides, January 1948 was the milestone here. But Alan promised that there would be many possibilities under Herbert. They were on their way to a Labour camp. They went to a Labour camp, also nothing else. He could work himself to death. How about that? Herbert sighed and said that he was possibly too late for that. He wasn't really sure because he'd never worked all his life. And there, Alan's ears were open. In a prison camp, you just hang around because the guards will shoot you. Herbert liked the idea, but gave creep same time. A load of bullets. Wouldn't that be very painful? Alan didn't ask much. He just wanted bed, lots of food, something to do, now and then a glass of vodka. If these violence were there, he could stand stress. The cabin had Vostok now in everything except vodka. At that time, the Harvard Vostok consisted of an open and a closed part. Surrounded by 5 Gulag camp consisted of 40 round barracks in rows of 4. Fence went all the way down here. The ship was going to go lower under the Gulag was berthed inside the fence, the others outside. Almost every stop has residence. Only small fishing boats, crews had trying to residence, the occasional large oil tanker. With few exceptions, the days of camp had Vostok all the same. Rebellion about 6 in the morning, breakfast at 4 past. The working day lasted 12 hours, from half past 6 to half past 6, half hour day. Immediately after the working day, there was supper, and then it's time to up until the next morning. The diet was substantial, mainly fish, admittedly rarely in the form of soup. The guards weren't exactly friendly, but they shoot without cause. Even Herbert started to stay by, all contrary to his own ambition. He did, of course, work more slowly than any other person, since he always stayed close to hard work, nobody noticed. Alan had nothing against working too. but he suited to his room. Herbert wasn't allowed to complain about how miserable his life was. Alan had already understood that the case, and there was nothing wrong with his memory. To keep on saying over and over again, thus served no purpose. Herbert obeyed. And then it was age, just most for a like a vodka. Alan put up for exactly 5 years and 3 weeks. Then he said, "Now, I want to drink. I can't get here, so it's time to move on." Chapter 17. Tuesday, May the 10th, 2005. The spring sun shone bright nights in a row, even though it was cool in the morning. Rosie was able to take breakfast out of her. Benny and the beauty saw Sonia out of the bus in the field behind the farmhouse. Alan had years at the sofa, rocked gently. One of them was 100 years old, the other was 120 years old. His head throbbed, and his broken bones raced hard to breathe. His right arm was nothing to mention the worst of all, the deep wounds in his right leg. When he came by a change dressing leg, thought best to start with strong painlessness. They could then absorb morphine if necessary. After which, Benny returned to Sonia and left Alan pipe to themselves. Alan thought it was high time. Thought it was high time to make a serious conversation. He was sorry that Bolt had lost his life out there on the Surdland forest, and that Bucket ended up on Sonia. Both Bucket and Bucket were threatening to put eye and perhaps a mitigating factor. Didn't Mr. Pike say so? Pike did answer Sonia was dead. It didn't really surprise him over how dear old Caesar, albeit with a little statistic as they had been hopelessly daft. The only person he was even more daft was the fourth of the club Rackets. But he had just done country well in South America. Pike was sure where he came from. Then Pike heard his voice sad. You see, he was sorry for himself, because it was Rackets with a neighbor next to cocaine in Columbia. Now, Pike neither interpreted intention. He sat on the top broke bones without a clue what he should do last night. Alan said there was sure some other drugs to Pike so sell. Alan didn't know much about drugs, but couldn't Mr. Pike suppose bad grow something here on the farm? Pike supposed his best friend in life, but also had down more principles. Otherwise, Pike would by now only all kings of Europe. Posing General Colin that's like the breakfast served. Pike could at last taste the juiciest chicken in the world, and with it, water seemed to have been important to the kingdom of heaven. After breakfast, Benny dressed Pike's type, and then Pike explained that now, if his friends excuse him. The following hours in the farm developed as follows. Benny and the beauty things around the barn so rig up a fitting on the state on Sonia. Julius went off into full shell supplies, and while they were the headlines self-centenary on had in the march across the country. Alan done after the hammer with the aim of not exerting himself, preferably in the Ulster, and Pike slept. So when Julius came back on their shop expedition, they immediately summoned everyone to a meeting in the kitchen. Even Pike forced to his bed. Julius told him what was in the newspaper. Anyone who wanted to read his inquiries, read the summer. There were warrants out for arrest, all of them except the person mentioned at all. Pike, according to News, was dead. That isn't entirely true, but I'm feeling a bit under the weather, said Pike. Julius was at a more serious suspected murder, even if it might end up being something else. And then he asked everyone's views. Should they phone the police, tell them where they were, and just on its course. Just on its course. Before anyone could say anything about that, I didn't know a war, and so that over his half body that anybody terribly phone themselves to the police. If it's going to be like that, then I'll get revolver again. What did you do with it, by the way? Alan answered with the revolver in a safe space, bearing in mind weird sense he's the Mr. Pike. But Mr. Pike was just as well, maybe remained a little longer. Well, okay, go along with that, Mr. Carl, stop being so forward. I am Pike, said Pike, and shook hands with the secretary. And I'm Alan, said Alan. Nice to meet you. So my friend was wet, but without him, Pike decided wouldn't have been anything for decent prosecutor. His experience was just as it ought to be. The others agreed. Not least on account of what justice should turn out to be just. The result of the short discussion was that the yellow bus meeting in Rose's huge warehouse, together with a lot of water tools. But it was also decided any person leave the farm without permission both of that is, the only one among wasn't until I saw was dead. As for the question what they should do next, what for example should a suitcase with money, the group decided to postpone the decision until later. Or as Pike said, I get a headache when I think about it. At the moment, I pay 50 million for a painkiller. Here are two pills, said Benny. And they're free. It was a hectic day in Inspector Happinson. Thanks to this round incident where pursued murder and no. But the only tip that Inspector Happinson had any faith was the one that came from the chief in Jönköping, Gunnar Lund. He reported that on the highway somewhere near Roselands, he had met yellow scars of badly front and everyone watching the headlight. If it had the fact that Rand started throwing eight back in the back, Lund would have phoned a traffic crash and tipped them off. Chief Inspector Happinson the second once again Mr. analyze the situation while under the influence. The North Pipe Chief Inspector. Are you going back to Sunderland, or are you going to Stockholm? He decided to check out the next day and set off pressing through our central store. Ronnie from the bus station, he's had a hug. Göran Aronson didn't have anything, he thought, and down the last whiskey of the evening. Chapter 18, 1953. In the course of 5 years, Alan had Russian well, and also rushed up Chinese. The harbour was a lively place, and Alan's contact returned saying once you update on what's happening out in the world. Among other things, the Soviet Union had explained NATO, one of the hardest meetings with various sophisticated voice. In the West, they suspected the Soviet seemed to be going through exactly the same principle as Alan tried to work out how many people might end up in some body and struck straight from the bottom. I believe you doing Borisovich mastered the art of drinking at the same time, he said. Alan also discovered the United States branch of Great Britain had combined their zones of occupation for a German republic. And angry Star being retaliated by the Germany of his own. So now the Western each had one, which seemed to crack that. The Swedish king had gone and died, as Alan in a British explained some obscure reason about the time to a Chinese sailor, who in turn remembered the Swedish that also brought newspaper with him. The king had admitted being dead for giving to attention, but that didn't matter. And the UK had immediately replaced those were fine in the country. Otherwise the sailors in the army talked about war, Korea. And that wasn't so surprising. Korea was, after all, only about 125 miles away. As Alan understood, the following had happened. The Korean Peninsula was kind of left over the Second World War. Started to occupy by its agreement and decided how it would separate north and south. This was then for negotiations last forever about how he should govern himself. But since Stalin and Truman have the same political views, not at all fact. It all ended up back in Germany. First, the United States established South Korea, upon which the Soviet Union retaliated North Korea. And then there was Russia for every reason to get on with it. But it hadn't worked out so well. Kim saw some north, and Syngman Ray in the south. Each thought it was best to cut the entire peninsula. And then they started a war. After 3 years, perhaps 4 million dead. Absolutely nothing changed. The north still the south still the south. And the 30 parallels still kept apart. When it came time to get the main reason to escape from the Lavaca, the most natural way was to see or many ships stop and that stop. But at least 7 Valerians and camped up the same years and all 7 discovered executed. Every time it happened, the others are warned. And the biggest one was Herbert Einstein. Only you recently yet again he had executed. One of John ships that every prison black was it was impossible to blend in the crowd. In addition, there was a narrow passage where ships guarded and well-trained guards stood loads left to the ship's crane. Also, it wasn't exactly easy to find ships where Alan readily accepted to stow away. A lot of transport went to mainland China, others to one side, north and east coast. There was reason to believe Chinese or North Korean captured under prisons held either turned back or thrown overboard. With the same fine self with less bureaucracy. Over land, it seemed much easier. North was a nice area where it really was causing no solution. North was west for China. What remained was south to South Korea, where they were sure after large region would be assumed to be any consequence. Too bad North Korea lay in between. There would be some stumblings along the way, Alan realized, before he had time to develop some vague plans south. But there was no point in worrying himself dead, because then he'd never get vodka. Should he try on his own, or along with someone else? In that case, he would have to have Herbert, miserable though he was. In fact, Alan thought he might find some resurrections. And it was certainly more fun too after just one. Escape, said Einstein. Over land? To South Korea? Via North Korea? More or less, said Alan. At least that's the working plan. The chances of survival can't be more than microscopic, said Herbert. You're probably right about that, said Alan. I'm in, said Herbert. After 5 years, everybody had a count how the cognitive activity was at Christmas 1333. Herbert. And even when there was ever summit, it seemed to be trouble. This in turn created a certain tolerance in regards to time. If any other business down the way was supposed to be fine, best be shouted at. Second best, you get a right in the stomach. And in the worst case, goodbye forever. But after 5 years, Herbert still find his way around the barracks. They were all just the same, brown, and all the same. It was confusing. Food was always served between about 13 or 40, but prisoner 133 just as often found one round beside barracks 7, or 19, or 25. Damn it, Einstein, the prison guard say. The food line's over here. No, not there. There. It has been there the whole damn time. Alan thought that he and Herbert could use of resuscitation. They could of course extend prison clothes, but their lives say prison cells minutes to that would be harder. Alan and Herbert each needed a soldier's uniform. And the only prisoner to get anywhere near so close there, shot immediately. Scuff was 113 Einstein. So Alan told his friends what to do. It was a question of going the wrong way when it was time for lunch. Because it was lunchtime at the staff depot too. During that half hour, the depot was solely by machine gun, tower. Like all the other guards, he knew about 113 strange ways. But if he saw Herbert, he would probably just shout rather than shoot him. And if Alan was wrong about it, it was a huge Herbert's terrible definition. Herbert had worked out well. But what was it that he was supposed to do? Could he tell him one more time? And of course, wrong. Herbert lost the first time he found himself on the right space food line. Alan was already standing on the side, gave push. But that hell, Herbert went away again, and before he knew it, he found himself ignored everyone. And what did he find there? A whole pile of washed iron uniforms. He took two uniforms, hid them inside as he went out of barracks. The soldier watched out, saw it, but he didn't bother shouting. He felt the guard that as if he was exactly on the way to his own barracks. But miracle, unto himself, and returned to his before, which was treating the somewhere else, far away. Now only tried to show how it was in the red army. Now it's just a matter of rest. Recently, Alan has done considerable number of ships on the way to South. The Soviet Union was not in North Korean side. Lots of opportunities started to trade Boston, but it was then loaded on ships safe to destination. Not that it was advertised where, but Alan has to ask the sailors. Sometimes you can see what cargo consisting of. For example, rough terrain vehicles or even tanks. While on other occasions, they just wouldn't take containers. Alan needed a knife attack like the one in 6 years. Following the old Roman max, even teaching to watch best. He thought fireworks were just the thing. And that was where it was towards sound to picture. Alan knows that he gets several obtained explosives. And if such a would catch fire, and if it starts to explode, well then Herbert would have the opportunity to stick around and change so units. And then they would have to get home car, which would need to have ignition and a fuel tank test plus no own site. And then the guys would have to work on Alan's orders. And once they were out of the Gula area, nobody was noticing strange at all. Nobody would stole the car, and nobody would follow them. And all of this, they were even in the vicinity of problems like how they were getting to Korea, above all, how they moved from the south. I might be a bit slow, said Herbert, but it feels as if your isn't entirely ready. You aren't slow, Alan protested. Well, that's a little bit when it comes to this, you're perfectly right. I think we should just leave it at that. And you'll see it turn out like they do, because that's what usually happens. Almost always bag. The estate's first states consistent secret selling to container. For that purpose, they needed one suitable container, two something set on fire with. While wishing for the container, Alan sent orders to Einstein started another mission. And Herbert showed that Alan's faith wasn't best. By managing most steals, signal rocket behind last so discovered where right. But instead of executing her, at least searching the prisoner. The guard just shut him out of the not unreasonable statement about 5 years as number one food should stop loss. Herbert said he was sorry, but tip way. For the sake of art, he went direction. Barrack is left, Einstein. The guard shouted after him. How stupid, get. Alan praised for a job done well. Herbert blushed. What is safe? Last year. Alan said that he didn't know how it was because the idiot Alan so far in his life is like to do the opposite. Then what's the right day turned up? It was a cold morning, the first of March 1953, when a train arrived, more wagon as than east to Count. The transport was off the village, and everything was loaded below 3 ships, all destined for Philadelphia. 8:34 couldn't see part otherwise. Everything was massive containers without any issues. But the gap was black was just big when I was 6 o'clock. We finally one containers. And that was exactly what I did for sharp after half an hour. Smoke soon began to go out. Help with the 7 seconds below the core. So Alice could get away. And wasn't police faces being involved. Soon the container itself was ablaze in the effects of zero dark side. The plan was to explode and was some light. That guards reacted like chickens, and Alan and Herman would get back in their barracks for a change. The problem was that nothing ever exploded. There was, however, an enormous smoke, even worse. Guards would go fire themselves, ordered some risk or water burning. This in turn, the three of us could use the smoke screen while they climbed over the 7 into the open side of the harbour. But the soldier watched what was happening. He was already setting his machine gun, and now he fired off cell bullets through the sword toward the fleet. Since he was using trace ammunition, he hit for a large number of shots, and the men fell down dead. And if they weren't already dead, they were so later because it wasn't Christmas to hit. An undamaged tank stood to the left of the fire, horse protected in fools. Alan's container held 1,500 military blankets. The container next to it held 1,500 grenades. The tracer bullets contained phosphor, and when the first grenade exploded, 10 seconds later it hit 1,499 others with it. The explosion was so powerful that the next four containers proved 30 yards behind the camp. Container number 5 held 700 lines, and there was soon another just as powerful first one, which in turn turned the contents of the 4 containers being spread in all directions. Chaos was what Alan and wished for. Chaos was what was got. But yes, it had barely begun. The fire container after container. One of them was full of gas. Another was full of ammunition took on a life of its own. Two of the watchtowers now 8 barrels fully always all for some piercing shells contact. The first shell knocked out number 3. The second went right into the entrance, and in passing took the entry barrier guard post with it. Four burst from them, and the next cell was in shell fired to wall. Then another container exploded and that started a new change, which finally reached the last container end of the road. This happened to be the second part of our shells. And now these shots on the other direction toward the harbour went tanker, with 65,000 tons of oil was about to berth. The direct hit the bridge left the tanker drifting, and a further 3 to the side of the hull started a large fire avoid. The violently burning tanker now drove along the edge of the centre of the town. During this last journey, set fire to the houses along its route, a distance of 1.4 miles. The wind comes from the south that day, so we didn't take another 25 miles before. Literally, all of the obstacles was a blessing. Comrade Stark was just finishing pleasant distance area, melancholy guard, Christian residents, screaming. He was used to basically, Vladivostok persisted after a fire started to take blanks, make mark. The news made Stark feel really all sorts. Stalin's favourite, the energetic Keota so gave Khrushchev like he got a quite fight at her. And Stalin laid out that yes, Keota so gave certain like. My dear comrade Stalin, said I suggest that what has happened in this case has not happened. I suggest that Vladivostok is immediately sealed off from the rest of the world, and then patiently build up the town again and make a base for our Pacific fleet, just as Comrade Stalin ran earlier. But above all, what has happened has not happened. Because the obvious way to whisper is that we can't afford to show. Does Comrade Stalin understand what I mean? Does Comrade Stalin agree? Stalin still felt sorts, and he was blunt too. But he nodded and said that Stalin's wish that Keota himself should be responsible for making sure what had happened. Having said that, he announced it's time to withdraw. He wasn't feeling well. Vladivostok, thought Marshall area. Wasn't I heard that Swedish experts said to be reserved and build the bomb by ourselves? I forgot all about him. I should have told you and Boris would pop super by himself. Anyway, perhaps now he's been incinerated. Although he didn't take the whole town with him. But the door takes place Stalin formed his staff, and no circumstances to be disturbed. And then closed the doors and on the edge of the bed, and under the buttons of his shirt, while he reflected. Vladivostok. The town was Stalin's eyesight, people they so specific. Vladivostok, town to place such what common sense. Vladivostok didn't exist any longer. Started to ask ourselves how the hell it take place when start birds, might Fahrenheit. Some must that bastard would. upon which Starling fell to the floor. There remained spellbound until the following evening, as if Starling was disturbed, and even did disturb. Alan and Herbert Barry was one of the first to catch fire, and the friends of each scrapped their vans near what you think of. The fence around the already fall down, if there were any downstairs, there was nobody to keep guard. So getting out was difficult. But what would happen next? They couldn't see the military trucks, they were on fire. And going down wasn't an option either. For some reason, all the fire stopped burning. Most of the prisoners survived fire explosions, stayed in good road side camp, at a safe distance from grenades, shells, everything else flying out in the air. A few trench sites set off, all of them in the northwest trench, because that was the only direction rush for the fleet. In the east water, in the south, the Korean War, direct north was a town burning up. The only remained was to white in really cozy area. But the soldiers were there too before the day was over. Yes, we sensed to each other. Every one of them. The only exceptions were Alan and Herbert. They managed to make their way to the southwest of Boston. And there they sat west and looked at the structure below. That signal rocket burned very light, said Herbert. And that's bomb partly done a job, said Alan. So, what are we going to do now? Asked Herbert. It occurred to call us bombs back camp, which wasn't there anymore. Now we're going to the rear, my friend, said Alan. Since there are cars around, we'll have to walk. It'll keep us warm. Kirill Afanasievich Scott, one of the most skilled decorating artists made up. He was a hero of the Soviet Union, and he ordered no few 7 tasks. As commander of Lavaca, it fought Germans around there, and after 9 how terrifying these drugs broke. No wonder Merritt's cosmic marshal so Soviet Union, in addition to all his other wars and titles. When Hitler pushed back from Merritt's off east, 6,000 miles high train. He was needed to command the fast front, to chase Japanese armies out of Churchill. To note his surprise, he succeeded in that too. Then the world came to an end, and Merritt got himself tired, since there was waiting back in Haskell County remained in east. He ended up behind the military designated Vostok, a nice guess too. Genuine teak. In the winter of 1993, Merritt was 56 years old, still behind death. From there, he was in the Soviet non-prison in the Korean War. Both Marshal Merritt and Comrade Stalin in history important. Soviet did not now engage direct combat with American soldiers. Both sides bombed American way ahead. There was a time for everything, and this was not the time to be provocative. Which naturally didn't turn the Soviets from getting involved in Korea. The Korean War will be won, indeed it ought to be won. And now that he was a Marshal, Scott himself can take it easy occasionally. For example, he had a hunch outside Keota with years south of Boston. He stayed there as often as he could, preferably in the winter, on his own. Except for his aid. Marshal drive cars. What would make one think? Marshal Merritt's aid had almost hours drive from Boston, saw winding coast road, a pillar of smoke. Distance great worth in truck. So Marshal Merritt ordered speed ahead, heading next 15 minutes. The age to find a place to park with a good view of the bay. Alan and Herbert somewhere along the main road, when a stylish literary creeped over down from the south. The SKS kind of smelled like a car passed. But then the car started stopping 50 yards away. Out stepped an officer chest full of men, accompanied by his aide. The officer was out of the car, the officer's aide guards next to the bay on the side which Vostok had recently stood. This made it simple for Alan to sneak up the car, seize the officer with his aide automatically, and then make his aide aware of the fact they were now in a tricky situation. Or, as Alan said, Gentlemen, would you kindly take your clothes off? Marshal Merritt was furious. You did not treat Marshal Soviet Union that way, not even if you were a prisoner. Did the two gentlemen mean that he, Marshal A. Merritt Scott, should enter Vostok wearing the underpants? Alan answered it would be difficult to enter Vostok at all, as that burning down. But otherwise, that was less what his friend Herbert meant. The gentleman would be given a couple of fearing like prisoners in exchange in any case. And there they got to Vostok, or whatever one should call the smoke's ruin that's there. The warmer it can get. Upon which Alan and Herbert stolen uniforms and left their old prisons in a pile ground. Alan thought that would be safe to drive itself, so Herbert be Marshal Merritt Scott, and Alan his aide. Alan wished the Marshal farewell, and said he needn't so angry because Alan was sure wouldn't help at all. Besides, it would be spring in Vostok was, well, perhaps it wasn't. Anyway, Alan encouraged the Marshal to think positively, but added that of course up to the Marshal himself. If he really wanted to go on going his under perhaps negative thoughts about life, then he could do so. Farewell, Mr. Marshal, and you too, of course, Alan added. The marshal didn't reply. He just continued to glare at them while Alan turned the torpedo around. And then he and Herbert set off southward. Next stop, North Korea. The border crossing the Soviet Union and North Korea was an uncomplicated affair. First, Soviet bodyguards saluted, and then the North Koreans did the same. Without a word exchange, Larry was the Soviet Marshal Herbert and his aide, Alan. The most devoted to Korea size by what he thought her teams. Korea couldn't have a friend of the Union Socialist Republics. Presumably the Marshals were always to make sure Vladivostok safe. But this particular Marshal wasn't thinking well-being for Korea. It's not even so which country he found himself. He was fully occupied with how the cars collided. What Alan had to say in the heart was that the Korean War complex standstill. But the two parties were each back on their own side. When Herbert decided this, he suggested one way to pass from the south would be to get up speed and jump border as long as it was wide. There was a risk of getting shot with jumping, but that wasn't such a big deal. But it turned out, still with the way left the border, the scales already being waged around them. American planes circling and bombing everything they saw. Alan realized military Russian Star car probably be regarded as an excellent target. So he left the main road without first marshal mission and drove inland on small roads with shelter of an air by his heads. Alan continued southeastern while Herbert attended to the run with the wrong commentary from the marshal's wallet, which he had found in a pocket of his room. It contained some rules, but also information about Marshall's course, some correspondence about tactics. Maybe he was the one in charge of train transport, said Herbert. Alan praised Herbert for that, which he found wise, and Herbert blushed. By the way, you can memorize Marshal Kirill Afanasyevich name, asked Alan. It would be useful. I'm sure I can't, said Herbert. When it started to get dark, Alan and Herbert into the yard like a well-to-do farm. The farmer, his wife and children stood in front of the porch. Yes, it's a fancy car. The aide, Alan apologized in Chinese for right now, but wondered if it was possible to get something to eat. They would of course pay for it, they would have in rooms, they didn't have anything else. The farmer and his wife hadn't understood a word what Alan had said. But the eldest son, aged 12, had studied Russian, so he translates for his father. After which, it only took a few seconds to aid Alan Marshall Herbert pointed to the family home. 14 hours later, Alan and Herbert were ready to be on their way. First of all, they had dinner fast by his children. They were served in garlic pork rice, and with it had Korean vodka. Of course, we had vodka didn't exactly taste like sweet sauce, but after 5 years, these things in society was more than okay. After dinner, the Marshall both offered lodging. Marshall Herbert was giving the big upstairs for their children. Alan found himself full of lodging. When morning came, there was a rest of steam engine to drive through cheek before the Marshall's car gassing around the bar. Finally, the father refused to accept one roof from the Marshal until the moment Marshal barked out in German. You will take money now, peasant. And terrified Marshal agreed. Did as Herbert said, I don't understand what he said. They waved friendly goodbye, and then the journey continued to the southwest edge, without any other traffic wide road, but the threat or bomb ahead. As the vehicle approached Pyongyang, Alan thought it might have to work on a land. It was now out of best to try South Korea. The plan instead became to try to meet Prime Minister Kim Il-sung. Herbert was also Soviet Marshal, that also sufficed. Herbert apologized, fearing that the plan, and he wondered what point of meeting Kim Il-sung. Alan he didn't know yet, but he promised to think about it. One reason he given was those who got told the better the food tended to be, and the vodka. Alan realized it was only a matter of time he and Herbert stopped the road and checked out the property. Not even a marshal would be allowed just to roll into the country without somebody to ask questions too. So Alan spent a couple of hours struck over just to see what he said. Just one sentence in Russian, but a very important one. I, Marshal Merezkov from the Soviet Union, take your leader. Pyongyang was protected this time out and inner territory. We are 12 miles from the city, anti-aircraft, double checks on some Russians, while the inner ring is virtually a barricade. A front line defended against land attack. Alan and Herbert caught one of the outer jets first, and when they dropped North Korea until the cock crossed his chest. Marshal Herbert heard a single sentence endlessly, and now he said, I am your leader. Take me to the Soviet Union. By good fortune, the soldiers didn't understand Russian, but he did understand Chinese. So the Alan interpreted his Marshal, and then all the words came in the right order. But the soldier had almost impossible alcohol in his blood, and was totally incapable of deciding what to do. He did at least invite Alan and Herbert into the sentry box, and then he phoned his colleague 200 yards away. After which, he sat down on the shabby armchair and pulled out a bottle of rice vodka. The third day from his inside pocket. Then he took a gulp and started to hum sideways straight through. So yes, with a glow in his eyes. Alan wasn't satisfied with Herbert said in front of the guy. He realised that Herbert Marshall. It wouldn't take more than a couple of minutes. Kim saw before the Marshall and his aide were arrested. Through the window, Alan could see the other guard approaching. Now they had quick. Let's swap photos, Herbert, Alan said. But why? Asked Herbert. Do it now, said Alan. And so in all haste, the Marshal became the aide and the Marshal. The impossible drunk soldier stared and his eyes go some Korean. A few seconds later, soldier number 2 entered the secretary's office, and immediately saluted when he saw what prominent guest received. Soldier number 2 spoke Chinese too, upon which Alan, the guy's once again expressed his desire to find Master Kisu. Before soldier number 2 had to answer, number 1 ceased gurgling. What's he saying? Marshal Alan wondered. He says you just took all your clothes off and then got dressed again, answered soldier 2 truthfully. That is quite some vodka, said Alan, shook his head. Soldier 2 apologized for his behavior. When number 1 insisted that Alan Herbert had dressed each other, he was given a punch on the nose and keep his mouth shut once and for all, unless he was reported for drunkenness. Soldier 1 decided to keep quiet and took another gulp, while number 2 made a phone call for thing in the passing Korean, signing stamps to places and handing over to Marshal Alan. And then he said, Mr. Marshal, show this at the next point. Then you guide the second command of the Prime Minister's second command. Alan thanked him, saluted, and returned our car, pushing her in front of him. Since you've just become my aide, you'll have to drive from now on, said Alan. How exciting, said Herbert. I haven't driven a car since we saw you never sit behind again. I think it's best if you say no more, said Alan. I have a hard time with left and right, said Herbert. As already noted, I think it's best if you say no more, said Alan. The journey continued further behind, and went much better than Alex had expected. And with the help of passed and no problem getting into the city, right up the steps. Once there, second command received the second command could not proceed 2 or 3 days later. Meanwhile, the gentlemen stayed at the Sweet Palace, and dinner would be served at 8 o'clock, if that suited them. What did I tell you? said Alan Herbert. Kim Il-sung was born in April 1912 to a Christian family on the outskirts of Pyongyang. That family, like all other families, was under Japanese sovereignty. Over the years, the Japanese did less wanted people colony. Hundreds of thousands of Korean girls and women captured and used as slaves to lead Japanese imperial troops. Korean men were conscripted to the army to fight for the emperor, who had, among other things, forced them to adopt Japanese names, and in other slaves started to eradicate the Korean language and culture. Kim Il-sung's father was a apothecary, but also articulate his criticism of Japanese family one day flies northward to China, Mongolia. But after Japanese survived in 1931, it all peace out there either. Kim Il-sung's father was dead, and his mother encouraged him to join the Chinese guerrillas, with the ambition of forcing the Japanese out of Manchuria and eventually Korea. Kim Il-sung made a career as a Chinese as a communist guerrilla. He gained a reputation for commanding and brave too. He was appointed command of the entire division, and he fought so fiercely against the Japanese that in the end he himself few more divisions survived. That was in 1941, in the middle of the World War. Kim Il-sung was forced to the border to the Soviet Union. But he made a career there too. He was soon a major in the Red Army and fought right up until 1945. The end of the war, Japan had back Korea. Kim Il-sung came back as a national hero. All that remained was to build the state. There was no doubt that one Kim Il-sung as the great leader. But the victims from the war, the Soviet Union and the United States, had divided Korea's spheres of interest. But in the United States, they felt couldn't have a communist as the head of the peninsula. So they had a state of their own, a Korean exile, him in the south. Kim Il-sung was to set north, but exactly what did he do? Instead, he started the Korean War. If he could chase out the Japanese, then he could just as well chase out him and their UN followers. Kim Il-sung had served in China, the Soviet Union now, despite his own history. What he had learned during his training was, among other things, not to depend on anybody. He made one exception to them, and that exception had just been appointed as his second arm. Anybody who wanted to have contact with Kim Il-sung must first seek a meet with his son, Kim Jong-un. And you should always let us wait 72 hours to receive them. That's how you take your authority by his son, Kim Il-sung instructed him. I think I understand, father, Kim Jong-il lied, after which he saw his prediction and looked at the word understood. 3 days of waiting bothered Alan Herbert at all, because the food was good and the beds were soft like the palace. Besides, it was rare for Americans to come close to Pyongyang as they were easily targeted for. Finally, however, the time came. Alan was fetched by the second command, shown along the corridors to the second command's office. Alan was prepared for the second command to all the way. I am the Prime Minister's son, Kim Jong-il, said Johnny. And I am my second in command. Kim Jong-il's grip was firm in his hand, just beside his fist. And I am Marshal Kirill Afanasyevich Meretskov, said Alan. I am for that the youngest agreed to receive me. Would the youngest accept my mission? Kim Jong-il would. So Alan continued his lie. The Marshal had a misspecified direct comrade Moscow. Since there was suspicion the USA, the capitalist Heisenberg, had infiltrated the Soviet communication system. The Marshal did not go into more detail. The youngest staff. Comrade Stalin decided that it should be conveyed in person. And this mission of honor had fallen upon Marshal Schultz and those of his aide, whom the Marshal did their safe side. Kim Jong-il was suspicious of Marshal Allen, and seemed to be almost convinced when he said that his job to protect his father at the cost. And part of that job was to trust nobody. His father had taught him that, explain. So Kim Jong-il couldn't contemplate the Marshal as his prime minister until the Marshal story changed so Kim Jong-il declared was with a star in fact central. It is of course fitting for Marshal City object, but I will allow myself to know that perhaps shouldn't use the telephone. If it's true, the one should use the telephone. The youngest see, wait. But his father's words excited. Don't trust anybody, my son. Find a solution. He would indeed both starting with talking Coke. Youngest came up and started time. Uncle Stalin was calling a little revolutionary. So I shall phone Stalin, introduce myself as a revolutionary, and then I'll start if he sent me to visit father. Then I don't think we'll say too much. The Americans should be listening. What do you think, Marshal? The Marshal thought that Leave doesn't devil that boy. How old could he be? 10. Alan had himself. But Kim Jong-il said he would die for what was worth after a second factory. Furthermore, Alan thought things might be toward a nasty end, saying that. Anyway, things were as they were, so on. I do believe the youngest is a very wise boy and is going to go far, said Alan. But let the rest of fate. Yes, the idea is that I shall inherit father's job after father, so the Marshal might be right about that. But now please have a tea when I first started. Youngest came over to around the corner of the room, one hour more the tea, and thought about whether we ought to try to But he immediately dropped the idea. The starters was on the fourth floor of the Prime Palace, and also Alan declared his campaign. Herbert would have been more than jump if you dared. But of course he wasn't just now. Alan suddenly interrupted Mr. bursting into tears. He put the phone down and rushed over to Alan and cried, Uncle Stalin is dead! Uncle Stalin is dead! Alan thought such ordered absurd. And then he said, There, young Mr. Kim. Come, and Uncle Marshal give the young Mr. Kim a hug. There. When young Mr. Kim was more or less so, he no longer so cautious. It was as if he managed to tell no longer. Sniffling, he reported Stalin and Scrap 7 days earlier, and that according to Auntie Star, that is what he called her. Uncle died just before the youngest came to the phone. While the youngest sat around, Alan talked feet up right against the last to meet Star. They had eaten a annual deal together, and they had got that really good rises and true phrases. Comrade Star down sang all these over. Alan told George folks sat on the edge, just something short, certainly side. And the youngest came back to the song. Uncle Star sang that song for him too. Thus, if not before, all doubts was right away. Uncle Marshal was quite clearly said it. The youngest came short his father by the rest of the season next day. But now, he wanted another hug. In fact, the Prime Minister was sitting Young's half off his office door. That would have far to races. No, if you were going to King so we embark on a journey which the security was undertaken in an SU-120 Southern howitzer, because the Prime Minister's second command coming along too. The vehicle was all covered, but that's when the howitzer, of course. During the journey, Alan had been continuing long time uncalled for things. The first was what he would say to Kim soon, and the second was what the result of the In front of Prime Minister's second command and son, Alan made the important message from Stalin. And thanks to amazing luck to become easy to do this. Before the first Marshal said anything at all, Stalin marched today we had denied. So as I decided to do something that Stalin's going to give him some 200 struck or 300. A higher figure, the happy Prime Minister revealed. The other thing was more ordered. Alan was particularly interested in tracking the Soviet competition so soon. But to get the North Koreans to help Alan and her south, it would be easy. And staying in the city means so be more unhealthy donors didn't turn up. Could China be an alternative? As long as there was an urban black wizards and they will entertain. Korea's black anime, and possible transformed from a threat to promise. Since Eleanor was so charged, especially that treating you so like that's not really a So stop China. And then things just turned out however they did. If no better option turned up all routes, they could always trace over layers. With that, Alan felt effective enough. First, Kim Il-sung and 300 tanks with 400 Thereafter, the pretended marshal humbly asked help transportation visas to China, since the marshal had business about too. Alan was pleased with that plan. Toward the evening, the armored convoy passed over the young Kim Jong-un and went to some kind of military camp. Do you think we ended up in South Korea? Herbert asked hopefully. If there's anywhere in the world where Kim Il-sung is not sitting keeping his head down, then it's South Korea, said Alan. No, of course not. I just thought... No, I don't suppose I did really, said Herbert. Then the mill cracked armored clear Joe halt. The three passengers pulled out. They were in a military airfield outside the built the Black Command Center. The young Mr. Kim held the door open after we checked in, trying to pass past the gentleman held open the door. With that, the trio had reached the holiest of husbands. Inside stood a large white desk covered in papers. On the wall behind it hung a map of Korea, and on the right were two circles. Prime Minister Kim Il-sung sat on one sofa and talked to a guest on the other. On the other side of the room, two soldiers armed machines stood attention. Good evening, Mr. Prime Minister, said Alan. I am Marshal Kirill Afanaseyevich, Moscow Soviet Union. You certainly are not, said Kim Il-sung calmly. I know Marshal very well. Oh, said Alan. The soldiers immediately stopped to attention and instead pointed where weapons all Marshal is presumably Paul's aid. Kim Il-sung was still calm, but his son broke out in a combination of tears and fury. Perhaps this was the moment the last Christmas child disappeared. Never trust anybody. But he had sat on Paul's Marshal's lap. Never trust anybody. He would never ever trust a single person again. You will die! He shouted out in tears. And you too? He said to Herbert. Yes, you will certainly die, said Kim Il-sung, still calm. But first, we find out who has sent you. This doesn't good, Alan thought. This good, Herbert thought. The real Marshal Kirill Afanaseyevich Moscow's aide had no choice but to walk what remained of Vladivostok. After several hours, making outside the Red Army outside the destroyed city. There the communication even worse. The Marshal was expecting them to crisp would regret his escape. But soon enough recognized the freedom and the position. Only once in his life had Marshal threats come out just as passed by. And that was when Stalin started to send the area and resting torture for nothing. It would certainly have nothing Stalin himself for country's rescue. Perhaps Gorbachev would have done with the area after that. There was a world war with very strong in any case. So he was obliged to forget it. But Merezkov said to himself that he would get around himself immediately. So now he had to seek to destroy the two men who had his car in his uniform. Merezkov couldn't start the hunt because he didn't have his marksman's uniform. And it wasn't easy just trying to take one of the campus and then. They still had problems with some trivial needle and thread. All of Vladivostok sewing worked together with the rest of the city and ceased to exist. But after 3 days, the Marshal team was ready. Of course, it meant because the forces towards him. Nevertheless, Merezkov never let stop him. Marshal Merezkov had something to arrange for himself. Most militaries had lost fire and settled south dawn 5 days after the resistance started. But the Korean border had his suspicions confirmed. The Marshal just like Marshal and he did just Marshal across the border and moved southward. The border guards didn't know Marshal came off the same that Alan found 5 days earlier, namely that it would be suicide in front. So he turned off Pyongyang after hours was able to overtake the right position. The guard out told Marshal Merezkov with aid and asked for Prime Minister Kim Il-sung and being given order for Prime Minister Sebastian County. Marshal Merezkov and his aide had gone their way to Pyongyang. The real Marshal Merezkov second command minister second after that day. With all the authority associated Marshal Merezkov soon the second command the Prime Minister had. The Prime Minister and his son were in danger of losing their lives. And that the second command was now delayed showing the way to the headquarters Prime Minister. Since no time must be lost, they would use the Marshal's probably a vehicle must be 4 times faster than the self-howled howitzer in which Kim Jong-un could travel. Well, said Kim Il-sung, haughtily between his dress. Who are you? Who has sent you? And what was the purpose of your little deception? Alan didn't have time to answer the door, and the real Marshal rushed in, shouting, but the two men in the middle of the criminal prisoners were planning an assassination. For a second, there were two military marshals aimed to some machine guns. But as soon as the fight satisfied himself, the marshal, real one, the soldiers began to focus on hostiles. Take easy, deal, Athanassievich, said Kimsel. The situation is under control. You are going to die, said the furious Marshal when he saw how stood Marshal in with almost medals chest. Yes, so they all say, Alan answered. First, the young Kimir, then the Prime Minister, and now you, Mr. Marshal. The only one who hasn't identified is you, said Alan, and turned to the Prime Minister. I don't know who you are, but I'm hoping you have a different on that issue. I most certainly do not, the guest smiled back. I'm not the leader of the Republic of China, and I do not have any particular sympathy with somebody who wishes to find Comrade Kim Il-sung. Mao Zedong, said Alan. What an honor! Even if I'm done away with, you must forgive my regards to your beautiful wife. Do you know my wife? Said Mao Zedong, amazed. Yes, Mr. Mao was changed recently. You've done time. Cheng and I met in Sichuan some years ago. We hiked in the mountains, together with the young boy called Arming. Are you Alan Carlson? Said Mao Zedong, just astonished. My saviour? Herbert Einstein did not understand that, but he did understand Alan minds. But there's on the way being transformed into something else. Again. This wasn't allowed to happen. Herbert, I'm escaping. Shoot me. He shouted. A rush through the room, opened the door and himself clean, waiting over a buckle. Your comrade, said Mao Zedong. He's not exactly Einstein, is he? Don't say that, said Alan. Don't say that. There was nothing strange about being in the bosom of sure China, just outside Shenyang, Liaoning, about 3 miles west of Pyongyang. Mao spent time away, and he liked to be with his friend. Nevertheless, quite sort out, must get to see what's out to reconsider. Marshal Scott was the first to give Alan had suffered some areas where it was just like himself. To be on the safe side, Alan looked a little bit detail about burned down and Vostok. And when Alan proposed the Marshal swapped uniform jackets, Marshal back his songs. The Marshal was evaporated. Nor did he insult his part and cause for anger. After all, Alan had been hard. Kim Il-sung was worried that his son was so betrayed. Young Kim still shouted and continued to Alan's immediate and referee by their death. In the end, Kim Il-sung boxed his son's ear and told him to shut up immediately or else get another wallop. Alan and Marshal were asked to sit down on Kim Il-sung's sofa. Soon joined down after Herbert, once he had tangled himself constantly covered. Alan's identity was confirmed definitively. Mao Zedong's 20-year-old cook called him. Alan and Arming hugged each other for a long time, until Mao ordered Arming back to Kingston's and losers. Mao Zedong's strategy to Alan saved his wife's life, you know about. He was prepared to help Alan's comrade whatever he wanted without limit. That included staying in China, if wished, where Mao Zedong would ensure that he and his comrade would become life positions of dignity. But Alan answered that just now, and Mr. Mao would excuse this, he had already taken up commons, and he longed to be able to relax somewhere and drink glasses of strong enough to pump political adventure. Mao forgave Mr. Carlson that, but he said that Carlson shouldn't too high for the future, because communism meeting success everywhere, and it wouldn't be long before the entire world was conquered. Alan asked whether communism take long to make its entry, preferably a place where the sun shone, which is white, with filled with something other than green banana. I need an innovation, said Alan. I've never had one. Mao Zedong, Kim Il-sung, Marshal discussing themselves. Cuba popped up as a possibility, and the gentleman concluded that Harvey might imagine somewhere more pacifist. Alan said that Harry was all far away. Besides, he just realized that he had neither money nor passport, so he was no possession of somewhat. As for my passport, Mr. Carlson wouldn't worry. Mao Zedong promised to give a hand his force so that they could go anywhere they wanted. He would also buy the dogs, because he had access to them. It was one of the true sense that Kuomintang had abandoned during Taiwan. But it was true that the Caribbean was on the side of the globe, so perhaps it would be a bad idea to think of other options. While the three articles continued to create a discussion where someone was allergic to their ideology to go on holiday. Alan silently very true for the financial aid. The Philippines was not a suggestion, but were considered too unstable in political terms. Finally, Mao suggested Bali. Alan wrote about Indonesian banana and let him think about Indonesia. And it wasn't communist either. even though communism was lurking bush there everywhere else, with the possible except Cuba. But they would have access to more than banana in barley, I'm sure that. Barley is, said Alan. Are you coming, Herbert? Herbert Einstein explained to himself that he was going to live a little longer, and he nodded dejectedly. Yes, he would come along. What else could he do? Chapter 19. Wednesday, May the 11th, Wednesday, May 25th, 2005. The future is dead, and it is successful to keep ourselves outside of the farm. The farm lay to yard main road, and the farm bar sealed yard view. This created a free zone for Sonia. She could have a walk from the bar, small farm. Life farm, gently, might enjoy. Many raised pipes, some sensible, limited amount of nonsense. Buster, like the views of the yesterday, Sonia like when she was hungry, and was in fact feed her beauty was there very friendly world now and then. Recently, the old guy joined the telephone, nothing seems better. For Benny and the beauty, the sun always shines every weather, and if they had a front door, they would probably have got married. Once you research it's easy to sense everything feels exactly right. At the same time, you both so became better to each other. When Benny managed to understand, he was no doubt that we drank fruit juice to his body, things went much smoothly. And Buzz was expressed by everything he knew. Perhaps hadn't quite stopped some time to sort of smooth. It was almost as if his brother had become a big brother, but that actually felt illegal or something. Alan didn't make much fuss about anything. He sat in his hammock all day long, although the weather like usual was sweet May. Sometimes pipes out down for a little chat. During one of these conversations transpired a shared image of the farmers. Both thought this perfect absence half to be found down a beach chair on our house in the sunny warm climate with stars and drink faces. Alan liked to delight to have a bars once times vacation might go from mountain to. But when it came to sugar glasses, Alan piped differently. The centre area wanted one Coca-Cola, or possibly one grape. On this occasion, he was vodka straight up. Like the other hand, like colour, for instance. Best of all, something orange, turning gold yellow like a sunset. And there had to be a parasol. Alan wondered like what a parasol was glass. He couldn't drink it. Pike answered while Alan without seeing the world, certainly knew all about that since Christopher Stockholm. This was something Alan didn't have a clue about. So this friendly little thing for a while. One of them advised the other advised big first. But they got along pretty well. As the days and weeks passed, the journal just started the story line. The story that is about a triple murder has been isned. After only a day or two, TV, national news and stopped. Old-fashioned, easily standpoint. But if you didn't have a say, you say nothing. The Swedish people had how long. If you had nothing to say, you could always something realize that each had nothing to say. The expressed was the idea of tarot to help Alan's where Alan's dropped it. That was enough Alan's. Your nose on the next shit. That's one trade. If nothing else was available, you run on our latest diet. That always worked. So the leading mystery was sent in disappeared in oblivion, with one exception. In the local paper, there were a number of reports about his release to house disappearance. Like, for example, the particular bus station now been fitted with security to catch future attacks. And that director Alice Phelps had decided that Alice House forfeited the room and would be allocated to someone else. Someone who was more appreciative and more staff. In every however, there was a short recap of these names. The result of Alice witness Phelps. A local paper happened to have a publisher cheap. A member that the attitude was a citizen of his proof. So the thing had to be dry name. Alan Carlson was indeed Alan Carlson. Julius was the 67-year-old, and Benny Lund was the hot dog stand proprietor. This in turn that an angry gentleman Chief Inspector Sergeant's office. The man said he had a tip of Alan Carlson. The man suspected a murder. Chief Harrison said just what he needed. Well, the man read all the articles in the local paper and very careful what had happened. While he didn't have much information, the chief was seeing to hear, but the police hadn't checked properly on the foreigner. And I am certain that's where you will find the real villain, said the man. Foreigner, said Chief Inspector Sergeant. Yes, I don't know whether he's called Ibrahim or Mohammed. The newspapers always following dog stand, as if he's a Turk or an Arab. No Swede would not a dog stand. That would only work if you're a foreigner paying taxes. My, said Harris. That was all at once. But you could be a Turtle at the same time. Or for that matter, an Arab Muslim. In fact, that's quite likely. So he turned and a Muslim? Even worse. Then check his background thoroughly. And his families. He'll have one relatives here, and they'll all be living on public assistance. Not a hundred. The only relative he has is actually a brother. And that was when I had started church inspectors. Have you heard Aaron's family the council, the inquiry is to see a female, preferably with a sister, cousin, child, or grandchild, living in a small land. This was before I had identified a real. The result of it, just one name turned up, but at the time it was slight relevant. But now, many had a brother just outside Haskell. Was that when the whole the chief inspector still tried to find the sons? And where does this stand? How much does he pay? This massive immigration stock. Aaron said he was a great man, even though he stand in this case, Bloom was utterly Swedish. Whether or not Berg was Aaron say, nor interesting. The man said he something chief inspector answered that it shows signs of socialism. There are a lot of people like me. We're growing in numbers. You'll see elections next year. Chief Inspector told these men to piss off now. Aronson first prosecuted that early the next day. He obtained the permission of the prosecutor to go to yesterday to find the former team case of specific councils. Aronson immediately jumped to the prosecutor the existing committee vote about 7 weeks. Prosecutor ran to Aronson good luck. It was almost 5 p.m. and the prosecutor tidying up while they was silenced on himself. Should he both things? The great victory of justice. Would that be the right time? Too pretentious. The great victory of justice. Better. And more humble. It fit the writer's character perfectly. Chapter 20. 1953 to 1968. Bouncy told in Alabama for British passports. Their journey by air from Shenyang, Shanghai, or Malaysia. Soon the former ISA was under a parasol, white just yards from the ocean. It would all well waiting constantly getting wrong. Whatever element or drink, they got something different. If they got it all. Sometimes the way on each. The last straw for was when he ordered a Coca-Cola, a bit more than Cola, and got he sang amble, my green banana liquor. Enough, said Alan. Was going to complain of hotel waitress. Over my dead body, said Alan. She is absolutely charming. The waitress was called Max. She was 30 years old, she married off a girl. She looked nice. Wasn't fine by Haskell County. Told that she was quite Bars for fork. So while Max had never boys chose girls to the island. Insofar as their choice. It hadn't really bothered her much. She felt rather uncomfortable in male company. In female company, nobody talked for that fact. Up until now, there was something really special about the two white hotel. His name was Herbert, and it was as if they had something in common. He must be at least 30 years older, but she didn't matter. Because she was in love, and her feelings were reciprocated. Herbert before met anybody was anywhere near as slow as he himself was. When Neil Blackstone turned 50, her father in a language book. The idea of his daughter would use Dutch, because Indonesia was at that time a Dutch colony. After 4 years of struggle with the Dutch came to visit. Neil Blackstone dared first to try Dutch, since it was difficult to learn, and was told that what she was speaking was German. Her father, who wasn't terrified himself, had given over the wrong book. Now, 13 years later, unfortunately, starts to unexpectedly use results. Because Neil and Blackstone speak to each other and declare their love. Next, Herbert asked half pile of dollars to be given to him after she was sought out by Blackstone's father, and asked and his eldest daughter. Her father was being made fun of. Here was a foreigner, a white man with his pockets full of money, who was asked to hand on by farmers stupid to his daughters. The fact that even not a sensation. Neil Blackstone's family belonged to the Sutra caste, the lowest 4 castes on Bali. Are you sure this is the right house? Asked the father. And is it my eldest daughter, you mean? Herbert Einstein decided that although he usually muffins up on this particular occasion, he was quite certain he was right. 2 weeks later, they were married. After Herbert turned to some religion which he had forgotten. But it was quite a fun one, with elephant heads and that sort of thing. Over this period, Herbert tried to name his wife. By the end, he gave up. Darling, he said, I can't remember your name. Would you be very sorry if I called you Amanda instead? Not at all, dear Herbert. Amanda sounds nice. But why, Amanda? I don't know, said Herbert. Do you have a better idea? Niwan's like to indict. So from that on, she was a man of Einstein. Herbert Amanda was a husband of his son not far from the hotel to excellence in his things. Amanda stopped listening. She thought it was just well to notice. She would be fine someday anyway. She never ended any fight. Now they just decide what to do for the future. Just like Herbert, Amanda did everything could be done. Left came right, up came down, here, there. So she never had any education. The very least part was that you could regularly find your way to school. By now, around Herbert, an awful lot of dollars, and so everything certainly self out. Amanda was apparently unintelligent, she explained to her husband, but she was stupid. And then she told Herbert that in Indonesia, everything was the same. And so money could get anything he wanted. Herbert didn't understand what his wife meant, and knew what life being able to understand. So instead of explaining further, she said, Dear Herbert, tell me something you would like yourself. Do you mean like being able to drive a car? Yes, exactly, said Amanda. And then she excused herself. She had some things to do. But she would be back before the evening meal. 3 hours later, she was home again. She had with her a newly issued driver's license in Herbert's name. But that wasn't all. She also had a diploma showed Herbert as a certified driving instructor and a receipt showing she had just taught local driving school and given it a new name. Einstein School Driving. This was all fantastic, Herbert thought. But it didn't make it a drive, did it? Well, yes, in a way it did, Amanda explained. Now he had a position. Now he would decide what was right and what wasn't. Life worked in such a way that right was necessary, while the person in charge said right. Herbert's face lit up. He got it. Einstein School Driving became a successful company. Almost everyone on the island needed a driver's license wanted to be taught with a nice white man. And Herbert rapidly grew this role. He gave all the theories himself and a friendly, authoritative manner explained that it was important to drive too fast because they might crash. And you shouldn't drive so slowly because then you obstruct traffic. The teachers seemed to know what to talk about. After 6 months, the island's two other schools closed for lack of customers, and now Herbert had a monopoly. He told Alan this to his wife as he visited the beach. I'm proud of you, Herbert, said Alan, that you of all people got involved in driving instruction. And here, where they drive on the left. Drive on the left, said Herbert. Do they drive on the left in Indonesia? Amanda was busy too. First, she had acquired a education. Now she had a degree in economics. It had taken a few weeks, cost quite a lot, but in the end, she had to sit in her top grades too, from one of the best universities in Java. And with the university degree, she had gone a lot of beach and thought hard. What could she do here in life that would bring good fortune to her family? Even with her degree, it was still rather hard to count. But perhaps she should. Could she possibly? Yes. Oh, damn well do it, Amanda Einstein thought. Oh, go into politics. Amanda Einstein of the Liberal Democratic Party. She thought the liberal democratic freedom sounded good together. She immediately had 6,000 members all thought she should stand for elections governor in the fall. The sitting governor would be stand for reasons of age, and before Amanda had arrived, there was only one likely candidate to take over. Now there were two. One of them was a man with a dark cast, the other was a woman with a super cast. The result of the election was preordained to a man with disadvantage. If it was fact that she had a pile of dollars. Herbert had nothing against us going into politics, but he knew that Alan disliked politics in general. And after his years in the gulag, disliked communists in particular. Are we going to become communists? He asked uneasily. No, Amanda didn't would. That word was a party name. But if Herbert really wanted to become communist, they probably add it. The Liberal Democratic Communist Freedom Party, said Amanda, and felt how the name rolled off her tongue. A bit long, but it could work. But that wasn't what Herbert meant. Quite the opposite, he thought. The less their party voted politics better. They discussed how to fight their campaign. According to Amanda, we have a lot of dollars left when the campaign is over, so it's expensive to win. What did Herbert think? Herbert replied that he was serving Amanda was the one who best understood that matter. There wasn't much competition, admittedly. Great, said Amanda. Then we'll use one third of our capital for my election campaign, one third for bribes to the heads of the election districts, one third for muddying the reputation of the main opponent, and then we'll keep one third to live on if things don't work out. What do you think? Herbert scratched his nose and didn't think of anything at all. But he did tell Alan about Amanda's plans. But Alan sighed that somebody distinguished between the now believed she could become governor. But so what? They had started a bundle of dollars from Tung, and there was more than enough for half. So he promised Amanda that he would give more after the election. But after that, he didn't want to hear any more project concerning the things Herbert Amanda didn't understand. Herbert thanked him for the offer. Alan was a very kind man. That's clear. However, Alan's help wasn't needed. The governor's election was a complete success for Amanda. She won with more than 80% of the votes, and her opponent got 22%. The opponent thought the total of more than 100 indicated the election was fair. The court dismissed his complaint and threatened him with serious consequences if he continued Governor-elect Einstein. Just before the court announcement, Amanda happened to be the court's chairman for a cup of tea. While Amanda Einstein was showing the eye of the eye, and her husband told people to drive. Without sitting behind himself more than necessary, Alan sat in his lounge chair beside the suitable drink in his hand. Since Amanda had given up waitressing, he now, most of the time, got served exactly as he asked for. Apart from sitting where he sat and drinking what he drank, Alan thumbed the international news he had ordered, ate, got hungry, and had a nap in his head felt fuzzy. Days became weeks became months, became years. But Alan never tired of being on vacation. And after 15 years, he still had a lot of dollars left. That was partly because there were piles of dollars to start, but also Amanda and Einstein had some time with the hotel they were staying in. And they immediately had the only paying guest. Alan was now 60 years old, and still around all this, while Amanda went straight with her political career. As can be seen from the regular opinion polls carried out by the Statistics Institute, owned by one of her sisters. Besides, Barley's Rag Human Rights Organization has at least corrupt region in the country. That in turn was a man why the entire investigating activity. Nevertheless, the campaign against corruption is one of the three things that characterize Amanda's work as governor. She even introduced anti-corruption lessons in Barley's schools. One master first was tested. In his opinion, the whole thing had the opposite effect. But then Amanda made chairman of the school board instead twice his salary, and that took care of him. The second thing was Amanda's struggle against communism. Before the election, she had organised a ban in the local communist party, which was on the way too big for good. This helped to get through the election with a much smaller budget than she would otherwise have needed. The third thing that contributed to Amanda's success was Herbert and Alan. Through them, she discovered that it was known as 85 degrees Fahrenheit all year round, large parts of the rest of the world. In what they called Europe, it was particularly chilly, and most of all far north where Alan came from. So she stimulated development of tourism by granting building permission luxury hotels on land she just bought herself. Otherwise, she looked after her nearest as she could. Father, mother, sisters, uncles, aunts, and cousins all had central lucrative positions in Balinese society. This led to Amanda being elected as governor no less than twice. The second time, the number of votes even tallied. Over the years, Amanda had also given birth to two sons. First, Alan Einstein. Herbert had Alan to thank for everything. Followed by Mao Einstein, in honor of the use of $5. But one day, everything fell apart. It started when nearly 10,500 erupted. The immediate consequence for Alan, 45 miles away, was the smoke of the sun. For others, it was worse. Thousands of people died, and even more had to flee the island. Barley's too popular didn't make any decisions worth the name. She didn't even realize she had other decisions to make. The volcano gradually calmed down the island and started politically and economically, just like the rest of the country. In Jakarta, Suharto took over after Sukarno, and the new leader was not going to stop as a deviation like his predecessor. Above all, Suharto hunted down communists, presuming communists, suspecting communists, possible communists, highly unlikely communists, and the audience first. Soon, somewhere between 300,000 people died. The figures were uncertain as what if Chinese since grand communists shipped out to East Asia. And they disembarked in China, they were treated as capitalists. When the smoke cleared, not a single one of the Indonesia's 200 million inhabitants stood to confess communist ideas. To be on the safe side, it declared a crime. Mission accomplished to Martin. Now invited by USA and others to share the nation's restrictions. This in turn got the wheels of the economy turning. People fared better, and best of all, Suharto himself became unbelievably rich. Not bad for a so started in his territory smuggling sugar. Amanda Einstein no longer thought being governor. As many as 80,000 Balinese of their lives to Jakarta sentenced to think correctly. Amid the mess, Herbert retired, and Amanda was considering doing the same when she was 50. The family owned land and hotels after all, and that $9 dollars they found was impossible. But now been transformed into a law enforcement. It would be just as well to retire. But what should she do instead? What about becoming Indonesia's assassin in Paris? So after straight off, introduced himself like that. So after a man expects work hard, resolution man over local processes. Besides, he wanted balance between sex and job illnesses. The balance would be 24 to 1 if a man took a job. Paris? Einstein answered. Where's that? But first, Alan thought in 1963 from Lavaca to that province, telling his time to move on. But when the sun popped out behind the city of California, most things turned out to be like before, except for some reason civil war skills. So Alan remained in his future for a few more reasons. And it was thanks to Herbert that he did back on Volvo. One day they heard that the Indian man was going to Paris. And if Alan wanted to come with them, let's rain falls an easy passport. Instead of all falls British last year. Besides, the ambassadors seem to have had a job. Not so much so that Alan would work, but because French difficult to let him come to the country. Alan set off. He had plenty of rest. Besides, Paris subsided by Haskell County walk the road down the last region, bar, even around hotel. They would leave in 2 weeks. A man has started job on the first Thursday in May. It was 1968. Chapter 21. Thursday, May the 26th, 2005. Every year, still sleeping when she expected your announcement to turn to Lavaca farm, and it was amazing to discover Alan sit on a large ground. Many, the beauty of Buster was this Harry Potter on your stay bar. You as a big grow, and been given permission to show go so show by size. Alan will fall asleep on a hammock, but didn't wake up. She expects me to be Christmas. Alan Carlson, I presume, said she expects me to nonsense. Alan opened his eyes and said presume the same thing. But he, on the other hand, had no idea who was dressing. Would the stranger behind the shed light on that? That she expected would. He said that his name was Alan, and that he was a chief inspector of police. The deal had been with Mr. Carlson for a while, and Mr. Carlson was under arrest on suspicion of killing people. Mr. Carlson's friends, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Lundberg, and Mr. York were also arrested. Perhaps Mr. Carlson tell him where they were. Alan didn't know how to answer. He said that he needed to collect his thoughts. He'd already done an alcohol, and he hoped the chief inspector understood. You didn't just talk about friend about your thoughts. So carefully. Sure, chief inspector, read. The chief inspector said that it was up to him to give advice, but Mr. Carlson should hurry up and tell him what he knew. But in fact, the chief inspector wasn't hurrying. Alan found reassuring. But the chief inspector sits down and have it so that it gets coffee in the kitchen. Would you like sugar in your coffee, Inspector? Milk? Chief Inspector answered. Wasn't arrested in it, just walk off anyway. Not even doing trace and change. There was something calm about this Inspector. Besides from the hammock, the Chief Inspector would have your kitchen. So Aaron's factory is off. Milk, please, no sugar, he said himself, come to have a hammock. The newly arrested Alice did himself and change. Danish pastry too, perhaps. While Chief Inspector Aaron sat around and watched. Aaron's with our parts now, he had, of course, seen a solitary old man farmhouse ran for fortnight Bill Lundberg's father. But he was able to Aaron's son, and that on the next exchange, the son confirmed that none of one person was in the vicinity, and that the entire journey to York had been for nothing. But when Aaron comes officially close to Aaron, it turned out that the old man had a habit of Carlson himself. Aaron said acted calm, professional manner, if you could call it professional, let's expect triple murder or keep some coffee. But now he was sitting there looking like an amateur. Alan Carlson, 100 years old, didn't dangerous, what would Aaron do? 3 other suspects all turned up, possibly in the company of Lundberg, for that matter, to be arrested for harboring a criminal. Was it milk, no sugar? Alan called out from the kitchen. At my age, you forget so easily. Aaron simply repeated his request for milk coffee, and then after those photophobia forces from his colleague for shopping. He would need 2 cars to be on the safe side, but the mobile rang before he could send his call. It was positively branded, and he had sensational news. Chapter 2022. Wednesday, May the 25th, to Thursday, May the 26th, 2005. The Egyptian sailor who had offered to stand the main bent islands to fish in the Red Sea had finally reached Djibouti 3 days of leave. In his back pocket, he had Bob's wallet with 800 Swedish crowns. The seaman had no idea what that could worth, he had his hopes, and now he was somewhere to change money. The capital city of Djibouti is rather unimaginably called the same as the country itself, and is a young live because Djibouti is a strategic place called the back right to where the Red Sea joins the ocean, and young people because people in Djibouti don't live very long. Reaching your 50th birthday is something exceptional. The Egyptians don't stop citizens. perhaps intending something deep fried for activities search for change. Right next to him stood a sweaty man, one of the locals, restless which way from one to another, with a feverish and rogue look in his eyes. The sailor found it strange, the sweaty man so sweaty. It was after all his 95 degrees Fahrenheit shade. Besides, sweaty man was wearing two shirts, pulled down things. The sweaty man was in his 20s, and didn't have the slightest ambition of becoming a member. His soul was in resolution, not because half the population of country was unemployed, nor because every citizen had HIV or AIDS, nor because of the short drink, nor because of the way the desert is spreading across the nation, swallowing the pathetic slaughter of our land. No, the man was furious because the USA had set up a military base in the country. In that respect, the USA wasn't alone. The French Foreign Legion was already there. There was a strong link with France and Djibouti. The country used to be called French Somaliland, in French course, until it was allowed to visit this uncertain 1960s. Next to the foreign Egypt, the United States had negotiated to establish its own homelands between this distance from Afghanistan, and indeed, with a whole row of African just around the corner. Good idea, thought the Americans. While nearly all the Djiboutians was careless. They were fully occupied trying to survive yet another day. But one of them had any time to reflect on the American presence. Or perhaps Mississippi had been too religious for his own worldly good. Whatever the reason, he was now wandering around the central faculty of the American soldiers. During the war, he nervously fiddled with the streams to stop at the right time so that the Americans would be below down. But he himself would sail off the opposite direction. But, as happened heard, it was hot and attended to Djibouti. The bomb itself was taken from his stomach and covered by a double layer of guns. The suicide bomb must have been boiling the sun in the air. The best he could do was accidentally fiddle a little too much with his string. In so doing, he transformed himself and the unfortunately happily stabbed here into mincemeat. A further two Djiboutians died from their wounds, and 10 or so were badly injured. None of the victims were heard. The man standing closest to the suicide opposite to a video room. The police found his wallet in sensation good condition to remains in September. Besides 800 Swedish crowns and banknotes, the wallet contained a passport and a driver's license. The following day, the Swedish honorary constitution was formed by the city's mayor, but all the evidence suggested that Swedish citizen Eric Bylund had fallen victim to the man-bomb attack in the city's fish market. Regrettably, the city was unable to hand over the remains of the said Bylund because the body was too badly damaged. The pieces had, however, immediately been cremated under respectful circumstances. The honorary consul did receive Bylund's wallet, which contained his passport and driver's license. The money disappeared en route. The mayor expressed his regrets that the city hadn't been able to protect the Swedish citizen, but he did feel obliged to wait something if the honorary consul would admit observation. Bylund had been to do without that visa. And know how many times he raised the problem with Frenchmen and with President Welling. If French wanted to find an Legionnaires direct to their base, that was their business. But the very same moment when the Legionnaire left the base to go to the city of Djibouti, my citizen there put it, as a civilian, he must have valid documentation. The mayor didn't for a second doubt Bylund was a foreign Legionnaire. He knew that pattern all too well. The Americans followed the rules, but the French behaved as if they were still in Somaliland. The honorary consul thanked their his condolences and lied, promised on subsequent occasion to discuss the matter with these French representatives. It was a horrendous experience as far as it existed. The unfortunate man in charge of the car crushing machine in the scrapyard in the suburbs of Riga, the capital of Latvia. When the last railway road squashed completely flat, he suddenly noticed a human arm sticking under the cubic metal packages that until recently lit the car. Arnis immediately phoned the police and went home, even though it was in the middle of the day. The image of a dead arm would haunt him for a long time to come. He prayed God the person was already dead before he squashed the car and crushed it. The chief of police in Riga personally informed the ambassador of the Swedish embassy that their citizen Henrik Mikael Keota had been found dead in a full Mustang car scrapyard in the southern suburbs of Riga. That is, they had as yet been unable to confirm it was him, but the contents of the wallet dead bag would suggest that such was his identity. At 11:15 in the morning of the 26th of May, the Swedish Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Stockholm received fax from the honorary consul of Djibouti, containing information and documentation concerning the deceased Swedish citizen. 8 minutes later, a second fax arrived on the same theme, but this time faxed from the embassy in Latvia. The official on duty in the ministry immediately recognized the names and pictures of the dead. He had recently read about their happenings. A bit strange to reflect that the men had died so far from Sweden, because that had been the impression given in the newspaper. But that was the police and sausage to sort out. The officials scanned the two faxes, and then wrote an email containing all relevant information about the two victims. Prosecution ran his life was about to fall apart. The case of the triple murder in Centenary was to be a professional breakthrough ran waited such a long time for, and the next richly deserved. But now it transpired that the victim number one, who had died in Sornland, died again 3 weeks later in Djibouti. And the victim number 2, who died in Smallland, did the same again in Riga, Latvia. After 10 deep breaths through your nostrils, Hospital Advance's brain started working. Master Anderson ran concluded. But now Anderson must find victim number 3. That must be some DNA to assist number 3. Otherwise, Randall had made a fool of himself. When Chief Inspector Anderson heard Randall's voice on the phone, he immediately started to tell her how he just located Alan Carlson. And another said, Carlson is now under arrest. Even though he was spending that less down in the kitchen brewing some coffee for Carlson. As regards the others, I suspect they are in the vicinity, but I think it is best I should first call in reinforcements. Professor Zimmerman interrupted the specialist told him sparingly that victim number 1 had been found dead in Djibouti, and victim number 2 in Riga, and that the chain of circumstances was disintegrating. Djibouti? Said Chief Inspector Anderson. Where is that? I've no idea, said Sergeant Randall, but as long as it's more than 12 miles from Orca's found village, it weakens my case dramatically. Now you have to find victim number 3. At that very moment, I knew you were prepared when I had stepped out onto the veranda. He nodded politely, but somewhat wearily to Chief Inspector Anderson, who stared at him wide-eyed. I think that number 3 just found me, he said. Chapter 23, 1968. The duties involved in Anderson's position in these Paris weren't arduous. The new ambassadors and their managers gave him the zone, set themselves out to do what they wanted. But it would be kind of you if you could help interpret things that go so badly to meet people from other countries. Alan responded that he could exclude things from that's considered just silent. The first foreign line should wait very day to have found understood correct. Amanda swore when she reminded the chap to go to his health accreditation. The ceremony lasted 2 minutes. That was more than enough. I was intending to say something stupid. Attending to the man thought she had. Alan agreed now and then something stupid did come out. But it would fine. The goal was she made sure she chose an easy intentions. But otherwise just smiled and friendly. What did you say it was called? Asked Master. Indonesian. Speaking Indonesian, said Alan. Or even better, Balinese. Upon which Alan went up for French capital. He thought that when you express themselves for 50 years each check, and also just seen himself in the embassy was reminded that he had a haircut shaved sometime after the Volcanic eruption in 1963. It turned out, however, that it was impossible to find an open shop. Everything was closed. Virtually everybody's gone on strike, and now they've occupied buildings, demonstrating, pushing cars aside, shouting, swearing, throwing things at each other. Riot barriers were put up along across the streets where he was walking, keeping his head down. It was all like the party he had just left, just to be cooler. Alan turned around and back to his embassy. There, he met a U.S. ambassador. The embassy house had just called, say, 2-minute long accreditation ceremony had been replaced by long lunch, and that the ambassador was warmly welcoming her husband, and of course, and that President de Gaulle visited 10 finest in teary share, not ceased, that the American President Lyndon Johnson be there too. The man was there. She managed 2 minutes on the company as was eating patient, 3 hours, and with yet another president at the table. What should we do, Alan? Asked Master Amanda. But the developer had a handshake long lunch double his business was just consequence to Alan. Trying to understand the consequences was in nature. What should we do? I think we should have a drink. It's already afternoon. An accreditation ceremony has a go one side and that's a distant, unimportant issue the other. Usually lasts 60 seconds. I'll my license for different questions talking. In the case of easy ambassadors, some company nature buildings and resources. One that Carl's never even if he try. As it happened, President Lyndon Johnson sitting there at his house on the recruiting. The protest has well against war in Vietnam raging like a hurricane. And the first person associated with President Johnson was undeniably unpopular area. Johnson was a bad man in elections. But he might be remembered by some more attractive murderer and other residents in shut all over his face. So first he had to break what happened. Tranquilize his consequences. The fact that they're happy to send more registers constantly some presidents from there was something that the goal to get his teeth into. President Johnson thought that the goal was a jerk. He seemed to have completely forgot who wrote this list and saved us from Germans. But the rules of politics such as President America's president can't say capture the guard out of that. So others took book and how to deal with that. But the French never tested out. Johnson was surprised and had double booked their president. So now the new Indonesian ambassador, a woman, was just joining. President Johnson was just one. He could talk to her to understand that. Go. But it was actually double. Instead, there was a girl associated and asked us about the entire European ambassadors. In this way, the London deal. He could be first in the easy ambassador or woman instead of John Johnson. President de Gaulle didn't like Johnson. but it was still rather personal. At the end of the war, the USA has placed under American military jurisdiction. They had entered the steeds country. How could the goal give them that regardless of the city's present attraction? The city president at that time, Johnson, he was called Johnson. The American city style. Thought Charles Aldridge was a goal. A man who soon agreed with the best state of the city in this way, the risk some people go to almost exactly half. Don't so. And on the side for a moment, consider it was possible. Before he said, Herbert, you should stay home. The lunch guests gathered left to 6 office waiting. And he intended to keep on with you calls in the hope that Johnson very bad mood. To go over the noise of the demonstration was far away as riots raged in Lavaca. The fifth front started to wobble suddenly from nowhere. First, some students who were for free sex against the Vietnam War. As far as that went, the president was students who always find something to complain about. But the demonstration became bigger and more violent too. And then the trade unions raised their voices and threatened to take 10 million workers out on strike. 10 million. The whole country would grind to a halt. What the workers wanted was to work less for a bigger wage. At that, de Gaulle resisted. 3 out of 3, according to the president, would force much worse than that. Leading advisors in the Ministry of Interior told the president to treat tough protesters with equal toughness. This is not anything for me. For example, the communist attempt orchestrated by the Soviet Union tried to take the country. But also copied in Johnson's expecting that this is a hard chance. Not only Americans saw communists hiding in a bush. We also say to go and taking on interior minister Fouché as a special emergency officer. These two have been responsible for handling current chaos in the nation, so they can also be responsible for defending themselves if Johnson started sticking loads in their faces. Ah, damn at last! But in French, said President Charles de Gaulle from his chair. They couldn't delay the lunch any longer. The French president's security staff had been especially careful when checking Indonesian ambassador's beard and long-haired charger. But his papers were in order and they had certainly wasn't carrying a weapon. Besides, the ambassador, a woman, vouched for him. Thus, the bearded man was seated at the dining table between young and smart-dressed American interpreter. On the other side, a French colleague was the same. The interpreter was working hard as bearded Indonesian, since Presidents Johnson and de Gaulle directed their questions to Madame Ambassador instead of each other. President de Gaulle started by inquiring as to Madame Ambassador's professional background. Amanda Einstein said that really she's rather a blockhead, that she should right away to as governor in Mali and then right away to be elected in 2 subsequent elections. That she had made pots of money for herself and extended family for many years, until the new president soon after had, quite out of the blue, phoned and offered her as ambassador in Paris. I didn't even know where Paris was. I thought it was a country, not a city. Have you ever heard anything so crazy? Said Amanda Einstein, and laughed. She said all this in a mother tongue, and the long-haired bearded interpreter translated it into a change almost as if Amanda Einstein said it into something not appropriate. And the lunch was coming to the 2 presidents were in agreement with what they think, even though they were aware of that. They both thought that Madame Ambassador Einstein was entertaining, enlightening, interesting, and wise. She might also show that judgment became a choice of interpreter, because he liked the wild and the warrior. Interior Minister Fouché is especially knowledgeable to see the fiction Claude Cannon was born in 1928 in Strasbourg. His parents were convinced fascist communists who had gone to Spain fighting against fascists when war broke out in 1966. With them, they had their 8-year-old son Paul. The entire family decided the war, a back communist path fled to the Soviet Union. In Moscow, they offered their services further the interests of international conflict. And they sent their son, now 11 years old, and announced that he would spoke 3 languages. German and French back in Strasbourg, and now Spanish. Could that happen in the long-term revolution? Yes, it could. The young Claude's Telemann languages was carefully checked, but after that general intelligence was a number of tests. And then he was put in a language-come ideology school, and before he was 15 years old, he spoke fluent French, German, Russian, Spanish, English, and Chinese. When he was 18, just after the end of the Second World War, Claude heard his mother and father express doubts as to the course of the revolution taking on Stalin. Claude thought these views to superior. Before long, Michel and Monique and Noah had been both convicted and executed for non-revolutionary activity. The young Claude thus gained his first award, a gold medal for the best pupil of the year, 1945-46. After 1946, Claude started to prepare for service abroad. The intention was to stay west and work his way up the corridors of power, if necessary, as a sleeper agent for dozens of years. Claude not only protected fought by the weeks of martial area, but he was carefully kept out of all official engagements which might possibly end up in Bobara. The only work young Claude was allowed to do was engage without his interpreter, and then only when the marshal himself was present. In 1941, at the age of 21, Claude Cannon was sent back to France, but this time he was allowed to keep his own name, although his life history had been written. He started up the career ladder that saw Bob. 19 years later, in May 1968, he was risen to immediate assistant of French President himself. For the last 2 years, he'd been Interior Minister Couchet's right hand, and as such, he now served the International Revolution more than ever. His advice to the Interior Minister, and thus an extension to the President, was to react harshly on ongoing student work uprising. To be on the safe side, he also made sure French communists sent false signals, implying that they were behind demands of students and workers. The Communist Revolution for France was at most 1 month away, and to go from Couchet didn't have a clue. After lunch, there was an opportunity for everyone to stretch their legs with coffee served in one room. Now, the two presidents had no choice but to exchange pleasantries with each other. It was one way of doing this. The long-haired, bearded Toto came up to my unexpectedly. Excuse me for disturbing both the Mr. President, but I have to talk to Mr. President de Gaulle. I don't think he can wait. President de Gaulle just started pulling hard because the French president certainly didn't mix with just anything. No. But the long-haired, bearded man was perfectly polite, so he was asked to speak. Very well, be quick about it. As you can see, I've got more things to do than chat than interpreter. Oh, indeed, and I promised to go on. The simple fact was that Alan thought President ought to know that here is Mr. Couchet specialized as a spy. Excuse me? What the hell are you saying? Said President de Gaulle. They did not so loudly that Couchet smoked out of terrorists, and his right hand also smoked out of terrorists here. Alan told him how he had a due pleasure of writing Minister Stalin the burial was exactly 20 years earlier, and that the Interior Minister's right hand was quite definitely that nation started in September. It was, of course, 20 years ago that he was just the same. I looked different. I didn't have an magnifying on my face in those days, my hair sticking out in directions. I recognized the spy, but I didn't recognize me, because I recognized myself up to the mirror yesterday. President de Gaulle, right, excused himself, and then immediately was to his private conversation with the Interior Minister. No, private conversation, without special advisor, now. President Johnson, the interpreter, went behind. Johnson was very pleased. He decided to shake Toto's hand as a thank you for having made French President lose his mass superiority. Pleasure to meet you, said President Johnson. What was your name? I am Alan Carlson, said Alan. I watched your predecessor, President Truman. Well, what do you know? Said President Johnson. Harry is always waiting to use his line. Well, we're good friends. Give him my regards, said Alan, and then made excuses so that he could hide Amanda. He wanted to tell what said President at the table. The lunch with the two presidents came to a rapid end, and everyone went home. But Alan and Amanda had just reached their embassy when President Johnson himself replied out to the Americans at 8 o'clock Helsinki. That would be nice, said Alan. I had anyway ended up having a square meal this evening because what you say about French food, it soon disappears from the plate like you actually haven't eaten much. That was an observation President Johnson agreed with, but he thought very much to eat these vegetables. There are at least three good reasons for President Johnson to invite Alan Carlson to dinner. First, to find out more about spying and about Carlson's meeting Barry and Stalin. Second, Harry Truman just told what Alan Carlson does in 1945. That was worth dinner. And third, President Johnson personally extremely pleased with what happened at the Élysée Palace. At very close range, he'd been able to enjoy seeing Golden Guard discomfited, and he had Alan Carlson to thank for that. Welcome, Mr. Carlson, said President Johnson, seated at a double chair. Let me introduce Mr. Ryan Hutton. He is a bit secret at the embassy, one could say. Legal advisor, I believe he's called. Alan shook hands with secret advisor, and then the trio went at the dining table. President Johnson ordered beer and vodka, because French wine reminded him of Frenchman, and this was to be an enjoyable evening. While they reached the first course, Alan related his life story up to the dinner in Kremlin, the one that went wrong. It was there that Minister Couchet's right hand had fainted instead of translating out his final insult to the already furious Stalin. President Johnson was so amused by this revelation, or no, turned out so spy and sincere French president, because he had just been informed by Ryan Hutton, the specialist Monsieur had, in all secrecy, also presented an informer for the CIA. In fact, Penard had up to then been the main CIA source of information that was not in the communist revolution in France, although the country deeply infiltrated by communists. Now, the entire analysis had to be reconsidered. That, of course, was unofficially confidential information, said President Johnson. But I can't Mr. Carlson to secretly come down. I wouldn't be too sure about that, Mr. President, said Alan. And then Alan told during that same ginger and bolting, he had been drinking with an extraordinarily nice man, one of the Soviet Union's leading nuclear physicists, Yuri Borisovich Popov. And the Russians there said a bit too much talk about nuclear technology. Did you tell Stalin how to build a bomb? Asked President Johnson. I thought you ended up in prison precisely because you refused. I refused to tell Stalin. He wouldn't have understood anyway. But the day before we nuclear physicist and man gone into detail and I would have done. That's what happens when you drink too much vodka, Mr. President. And it wasn't really apparent what a nasty man Stalin could be. Not until the following day. President Johnson had his palm on his forehead and pushing fingers through his hair. He thought revelation how to build atomic bombs wasn't something just happy because alcohol was involved. Alan Carlson was a fact. He was, in fact, a traitor, wasn't he? But he wasn't an American citizen, so what did you do then? President Johnson typed the thing. And then what happened? He asked, as he say something. Alan thought it best not to tell him details, and the President was asking. So he told him about Vladivostok, about Marshal Merenskov, about Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, about Stalin's fortunate death, about Mao Zedong, about a pile of dollars now time to supply him with, about the car flying by, and about not so car flying by, and finally about his journey to Paris. That's about all, I think, said Alan. But with all this talk, I became really parched. The President ordered some more beer, added a personal tonic 6 in the state of recreation was becoming teetotaler. Then he asked, you had a 15-year vacation financed by Mao Zedong? Yes, sort of. Really, it was Chiang money, and he got it from our mutual friend Harry Truman. Nothing mentions to President thinking. President Johnson had enormous problems with the knowledge that the bearded long had office with him to start the bomb. And then later paid for by American foreign aid. And on top of it all, you couldn't have faith here. Out down the streets outside the scene was shouting, USA out of Vietnam, USA out of Vietnam. Johnson sat in silence, his face a picture of misery. Meanwhile, Alan entered his class, studied by his face as President. Can I be of any help? He asked. What did you say? President Johnson said deep thoughts. Can I be of any help? Alan repeated. The President looks dreadful. Perhaps he needs some help. President Johnson was about to tell him to win the Vietnam War. But then he returned to reality, and what he saw before him again was the man who gave the bomb to Stalin. Yes, you can do one thing for me, said President Johnson in a tired voice. You can leave. Alan said thank you for dinner and went on his way, leaving behind President Johnson, the European CIA director, those who secret riot hustle. Lyndon B. Johnson was horrified by Alan Carlson visited the event. First, such a nice start, then Carlson sat there and admitted he had given the bomb not only to USA, but also to Stalin. Stalin, the communist of communists. Now, Hutton, said President Johnson, what should we do? Should we pick up that damn Carlson and boil in oil? Yeah, said Secret Hutton. Either that, or we could make sure to put it in good use. Secret Agent Hutton wasn't a secret, he was also well read on those things of politically strategic interest from the perspective of the CIA. For example, he was very well aware of the existence of physicists and Carlson had such a drinking session with submarine in Leningrad. Yuri Voskovich had made quite a career from 1949 onward, and his first big break might very well be thanks to the information Alan Carlson delivered. In fact, it was highly likely that such was the case. Now, Popov was 60 years old and technical director of the entire department of the Soviet Union. As such, he had knowledge so valuable to the USA he couldn't even reprise it. If the USA found out what Popov knew, thereby determine whether the West is in advance of the East to prepare to drop weapons, well then, President Johnson would take the initiative toward nuclear disarmament. And at last, such knowledge went via Alan Carlson. You want to make Carlson an American agent? Said President Johnson, who thought about how some serious disarmament would do it. Good. How will we remain president? Regardless of that damn war in Vietnam. Yes, exactly, said Secret Agent Hutton. And why would Carlson go along with that? Well, because he seems the type. Just a moment ago, he sat down and asked the President if there was anything he needed to do to help. Yes, said President Johnson. He actually did. The President was silent again for a few moments. Then said, by the way, I need a strong drink. Initially, the French government's hard attitude toward public dissatisfaction did indeed lead the country grind to a halt. Millions of French went on strike. The docks in Marseille closed down, as did the international airport, the railway, and all the department stores. The distribution of gas and oil came to a halt, and garbage collections stopped. From every side, there were workers' demands. A higher wage course, shorter work hours, and better job security, and more improvement. But in addition, there were demands for a new system of education, and a new society. The Fifth Republic was threatened. Hundreds of thousands of French demonstrated in the streets. It wasn't always peaceful either. Cars were set on fire, trees were felled, streets were dug up, barricades were built. There were gendarmes, riot police, tear gas, and shields. That was when the Prime Minister and his government did a quick about-turn. Interior Minister Fouché's special advisor no longer had any influence. He was imprisoned secretly in the premises of the secret police, where he had considerable difficulty in explaining why he had a radio transmitter installed in his bathroom scale. The workers on general strike was suddenly offered a big increase in the minimum wage, a general increase in wages of 10%, a 3-hour reduction to the work week, increased family allowances, more trade union power, negotiations on comprehensive general wage agreements, and inflation-adjusted wages. A couple of the government's ministers had decided to do, among them, Interior Minister Fouché. With this array of measures, the government president neutralized those revolutionary factions. There was no popular support to take things further than they'd already gone. Workers went back to work, occupation stopped, shops opened again, the transport sector began to function. May 1968 and June 1968, and the Fifth Republic was still there. President Charles de Gaulle personally phoned in Paris and asked for this analysis in order to award him a medal. But, yes, they said our house no longer worked that medal. Nobody, including the ambassador herself, could say where he had gone. Chapter 24. Thursday, May the 26th, 2005. Prosecutor Randall had tried to salvage what could be saved of his career of honor. He arranged a press conference that same afternoon to say that he just had counsel warrant for the arrest of 3 men and a woman in the case of the Sicilian Centenarian. Prosecutor Randall was lots of things, but not admitting his shortcomings in his mistakes. The prosecutor turned and twisted his explanation consistently in the information while Alan Carlson and his friends weren't under arrest. They had, incidentally, been found that same afternoon investing your house. They were probably guilty anyway. The prosecutor had acted properly. The only thing that was new was the evidence changed so dramatically that the arrest warrants for time being were no longer valid. The representatives of the Union wondered what way proof changed as the prosecutor Randall described in detail the new information from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs with regard to the fate of Ireland and Fulton in Djibouti and Greece respectively. And then Randall finished by saying that the law sometimes required arrest warrants to be withdrawn, however offensive that may be in certain cases. Prosecutor Randall sensed that he had closed that matter entirely. And that impression was immediately confirmed when the representative of major national Dargan's Theatre appeared over his weekly glasses reeling off a monologue containing a host of questions that made the prosecutor especially uneasy. Have I understood correctly that despite no circumstances you still consider Alan Carlson guilty of murder or manslaughter? Does that mean that you believe that Alan Carlson, 100 years old as we know, has forced 32-year-old Ben Byland and following him into duty on the whole of Africa? And then blown said Byland not himself to bits as recently as yesterday afternoon? And then, in all haste, gone to investigate your plan? Can you describe what transportation Carlson is with you, considering that the rest of us there are direct flights between Djibouti and West Sweden, and considering that Alan Carlson sent out a valid passport? Prosecutor Randall inhaled deeply and said he had made himself clear. There was no doubt whatsoever as to the fact that Alan Carlson, Julius Johnson, Benny Lindbergh, and Nilla Bjork were innocent of what they were accused of. No doubt whatsoever, as I said, Randall repeated. Having at last managed himself the matter, but those damned judges weren't satisfied with that. You have previously in some detail described chronology and geography of the 3 presumed murders. If the suspects are now suddenly innocent, what does the new course of events look like? Wondered the reporter from the local paper. Enough was enough. The representative of the local paper shouldn't think he could beat up on Prosecutor Randall. For technical reasons connected with the investigation, I am unable for the time being say any more, was Prosecutor Randall's close comment before he got onto his chair. Technical reasons in connection with the investigation have more than once saved the prosecutor a tight spot. But this time it wouldn't work. For several weeks, the prosecutor had drafted out the reasons why all 4 were guilty. But now the president don't like that he defeated at least in it to explain their innocence. Or, as the no-fault Dargan Hayat put it, how can it be secret for technical reasons as to another number of people have been doing? Prosecutor Randall stood on the edge of the precipice. Almost everything indicated that before they were straight away in a day or two. But he had one advantage over the journalists. Randall knew where Alan Carlson and the others were holed up. After all, investigative plans are Haskell County. This was by chance. Prosecutor Randall said, if once you could let me have my say, for technical reasons in connection with the investigation, I am, for the time being, unable to say more. But at 3 tomorrow, I shall arrange a press conference in these premises, and on that occasion, I intend to describe exactly what happened, as you are about to do. Where exactly in the investigative plan is Alan Carlson just now? Asked the journalist. I am not saying, said Prosecutor Randall, and he left. How could it possibly have ended up like this? Prosecutor Randall sat in his door until the first time he said in 7 years. He had been going down sweet criminal history. First prosecutor to commit murder to his victims, what hadn't found. And then suddenly, the body turned up. And in the wrong places too, and besides, number 3 was still alive, one had been dead as them all. Just think, what damage number 3 done to Randall. I shall kill the devil as a punishment, the prosecutor muttered himself. But now, as a mistake, he's on his career, and for that reason, a murder was a solution. The prosecutor went over to press conference in his mind. He had in the end very clear about the Carlson and his henchman were innocent. And all this was because he actually didn't know what had actually happened. Both must have died in spectroscopy. So how the hell he died again several major continents away. Prosecutor Randall just also saying something to the press. He ought to have put Carlson and his henchman investigated everything and then decided what they needed to know. But in his current predicament, in the aftermath of the catastrophic statements about the innocent Carlson and his henchman, if he were to put them in to help with the inquiries, it would be simply harassing them. If Randall had no options, he had to find out what had happened, and he had to do so for the following day. Otherwise, in the eyes of his colleagues, he would no longer be a prosecutor, but a clown. Chief Inspector Harrison was excellent at sitting and having a off, and with his face did into. The hunt disappearing cemetery was over. Besides, the sympathetic old man had a warrant for his arrest. Five-year-old guy climbed out of his window almost a month ago, hadn't since then discovered if it had been at all. Nevertheless, there was short time for a more small first. The man who would know killed was now risen from dead. Per Gunnar, the boss, dear turned out to be a vexed sort of guy. He had immediately proposed that they should drop four types of people first names, and that is supposed to be called Pike. That's fine with me, Pike, said Chief Inspector Harrison. You can call me Yoran. Pike and Yoran, said Alan. That rolls off the tongue nicely. Perhaps you two go into business together. Pike wasn't sure that he had the necessary respect for the Internal Revenue Authority's tax to be able to run a company partnership with Chief Inspector. But they nevertheless thanked him for the advice. The food thus immediately became jovial. And it didn't get worse when Benny and Beauty joined them. Shortly after, Julius also too. They talked all manner of things around, except how he had spent the past month fit together. Alan scored success with some elephant around the corner, and together with Sonia on a short dance. Julius became more and more wanted by the police any longer, started to cut off beard he felt like cultivate for dead, show himself all shirking. To think that I have been guilty all my life, and now I'm suddenly innocent, said Julius. What a delightful sensation. And both his part, this was reason enough to put a general Hungarian champagne for his Chief Inspector to toast each other. The Chief Inspector later tested he had his car far. The room was reserved for central shipping, so as a Chief Inspector he could hardly find there as he was tipsy. But then Benny came to the rescue, and said that 8 totals in general, according to Alan, were a threat to world peace, but they would use to have in a little lift somewhere. Have a glass of champagne, Inspector, to make sure you get safe to your hotel. The Inspector did first waiting. He had lost some of crying so socially. And now he found himself left some company sitting there in a sulk. Well now, a little toast to the innocence of you, I suppose the police ought to go along with that, he said. Or even toast if necessary. There are quite a few. Thus passed about hours in America before Chief Inspector comes mobile again. Once more it was rebranded. He told Harrison on account of unfortunate circumstances in the press. He had just announced that the 3 men and woman was innocent. But he had done so and allowed retraction. Besides, in less than 24 hours, he must know what had happened between the day the easy Carlson dined out his window and the present day. Because that is what was press was some here, 3 tomorrow. In other words, you're well up shit creek, said the slightly Chief Inspector. You must help me, Yoran. How? By moving corpses geographically, or by killing people who have foretaste to be as dead as you wish them to be. Prosecutor Brandon admitted that he had already considered that solution, but it probably wouldn't work. No, we hope your own cautiously sound out accomplices about whether Brandon really will far following morning for a little completely informal chat out this and that, in order to bring clarity as to what is taking place for a certain land and small land. And for good measure, Prosecutor Brandon promised that he would apologize for instances on behalf of the Southern Land Police Force. The Southern Land Police Force? Said Chief Inspector Harrison. Yes. Or, no, on my own behalf, said Prosecutor Brandon. Understood. Just take a deep breath, Connie, and I'll ask. I'll call you back in a few minutes. Chief Inspector Harrison turned to his pants and announced having used the Prosecutor Brandon just held a press conference where he emphasized how innocent Carlson's arrests were. And then he asked the prosecutor to request his visit. The Beauty reacted with an animated lecture, saying no good can describe in detail developments of the last weeks for the prosecutor. Julius agreed. If you had been declared as innocent, then you were innocent, and that was that. And I'm not used to that, so it would be too bad if my innocence lasts less than 24 hours. Alan said that he wished his friends to stop worrying about every little thing. The newspaper TV would certainly not leave the group until they had their story. So it would be better to tell a solitary prosecutor than have a journalist all over his face for a few weeks. Besides, we've got all we need to come up with a story, said Alan. Chief Inspector Harrison referred to here last week. He got up his chair to size his presence and stopped saying any more. It was time to call it a day, he said. If Benny would be so kind to drive his hotel, he would be most grateful. From the car, Harrison intended both Prosecutor Brandon and telling that he would well about 10 o'clock the morning, if that was agreed upon. In any case, Harrison intended to come in a taxi, if only to collect his car. Incidentally, would it be possible to have an hour-and-a-half exquisite Bulgarian champagne before you left? What? It was Hungarian? Well, it didn't really matter, to be honest. Chief Inspector Harrison served yet another filled brim, which he downed all hastily, rubbing his nose and getting a passenger seat in his car, already driven up door by Benny. And then he declaimed some lines from Swedish poet Carl Michael Bell about good friends and Hungarian wine. Benny, and almost literature, nodded. John 8:7. Don't forget tomorrow morning, Chief Inspector. Postcard of the first inspiration. In the Bible, John 8:7. 7. Judge 25. Friday, May the 27th, 2005. It takes time to get from student to foreshaping. Prosecuting planning to get up at dawn. And obviously bad night to get to go far by 10 o'clock. And the meeting run along an hour or badly ruined. The press conference was supposed to start at 3. Connie ran close to tears as they drove down the highway. The great tree of justice. That was what it's been called. If there was any justice at all, it was lightning strike damn far, and then burn to death. Then prosecution ran say whatever he wanted to justice. Chief Inspector Aronson slept late. He woke up at 9 with a bad consequence behind his business. He had drunk champagne from potential delinquents, and he had clearly heard Carlson say that he looked like other stories. Was he about to become a accomplice? What? When the chief inspector reached his hotel the previous evening, he looked up John 8:7 in the Gideon Bible. This is followed by a Bible reading corner of the hotel bar in the company of gin tonic, followed by another gin tonic, followed by another gin tonic. The chapter in question was about the woman who committed adultery, and who the Pharisees taken before Jesus faced a dilemma. If according to Jesus, the woman should be stoned for a crime, then Jesus was rejecting Moses, the book of Leviticus. If on the other hand Jesus was on the same side of Moses, then he would be with the Romans who had nominal death sentence. Would Jesus go against Moses or the Romans? The Pharisees thought they had us cornered. But Jesus. And after thinking over, he said, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." Jesus has not argued with Moses and the Romans, or for that with the Pharisees. The Pharisees went off one by one. Men in general are, of course, slightly free sin. Finally, only Jesus and the woman remain. Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? No one, she answered. Then neither do I condemn you, Jesus declared. Go now and sin no more. The chief inspector still had his senses intact. He was sure he was rat. But Carlson and Johnson and Bloomberg, York and Gerd were, as yet, declared innocent by prosecutor Randed. And who was Aronson called them delinquents. Besides, they were actually a rather appealing bunch. And as Jesus so rightly pointed out, who was in a position to cast the first stone? Aronson thought back to some dark moments of his own life, above all, he grew over how toxic Randed, and wished thoroughly pleasant, high dead, just to serve his own purposes. No, damn it. You'll have to sort this out yourself, Randed, said Chief Inspector Aronson, and head to the hotel's press room. Serial toast and egg washed with coffee to national dailies, both of which cautiously suggest a prosecutor had something of a fiasco of the case of the disappearance in an area, who was eventually both accused of murder and declared innocent. The newspapers have to admit they know enough about it. The centenarian itself couldn't be found, and the prosecutor didn't tell any more until Friday afternoon. As no your sources are yourself, Aronson murmured. Then the chief inspector ordered a taxi to arrive at Belrain Farm 9:51, just 3 minutes before the prosecutor. There was no meteorological system for prosecutor wished for, a light strike by Belrain Farm, but it was loud and chilly, so the inhabitants of the farm planned to be space. The previous evening, the group had read on Tim's stories, and prosecutor read out on the safe side they heard the story at breakfast too. Now they were reasonably sure of their roles for the morning's performance, allowing that the truth was much simpler than the opposite. He who tells big lies, he finds himself in deep trouble. So now the group had to think carefully over their answers. Damn and hell was how the PC sized the general tension for Chief Inspector Aronson and prosecutor Randall in the kitchen. The meeting was prosecuting Randall more fun for some for others. This is how it went. Well, to start, I'd like to thank you for letting me come, said prosecutor Randall. And I must apologize on behalf of the prosecutor's office for the fact that several of you had warrants for arrest without cause. Having said that, I would very much like to know what happened from the moment you, Mr. Carlson, climbed out of the window in the old folks' home right up present. Would you like to begin, Mr. Carlson? Alan had no objection to that. He thought this might turn out to be fun. I can indeed, Mr. Prosecutor, even though I am old and decrepit and my memory wasn't used to be. But I do remember that I climbed out of that window, yes I do. And there were some very sound reasons. That's very sound reasons. You see, Mr. Prosecutor, I was on my way to see my friend Julius Johnson here, and you don't show up to visit him after the vodka. And that's exactly what I went to explain. Something in a local state alcohol store, nobody was looking. In fact, nowadays, you don't even have to go away to a state alcohol store. You can simply knock on the door of... Well, I won't tell you next prosecutor, that's why you're here, but he sells private import vodka for less than half the regular price. Anyway, this time, Eckley wasn't at home. No, I told you his name. And I had no choice but to buy the vodka at the state store. Then I managed to get the vodka into my room. Usually, at that point, I'm home free. But this time, I was going out in a direct opportunity. She has eyes in the barrier, and everyone else, I tell you, Mr. Prosecutor. It's not easy to direct Alice. So I thought wind was the best reconciliation. It was my 100th birthday, but who wanted to have his birthday confiscated then? The prosecutor thought this might drag on. This old card Caesar has already bad for quite a while without saying anything. And in less than an hour, Randall found his way back to Haskell County. Thank you, Mr. Carson, for the interesting insight into your difficulties like Gringolding Day, but I hope you'll forgive me for asking you to be more disciplined in the Italian. We don't have much time, as I'm sure you understand. What about the suitcase and the meeting of Bob Island at the bus station? Well, now, how did that happen? Peregrine phoned Julius phoned me. According to Julius, Peregrine wanted me to take charge of the Bibles. I didn't say so. Those are Bibles. Prosecutor Randall interrupted. If you will allow me, Mr. Prosecutor, perhaps I give a little background information, said Benny. By all means, said the prosecutor. Well, it's like this. Alan is a good friend of Julius and Peregrine, who in turn is a friend of Peregrine, the man the prosecutor thought was dead. And Peregrine in turn is a friend of mine. And I am partly the brother of my brother, both the man who was host today. Partly the fiancé of Gunilla. She's the beautiful lady at the table. Gunilla sees herself as Jesus, and that's some common boasters who sells Bibles to good example. The prosecutor sat at the pen said so quickly that he dropped on a single word. Except Jesus? Yes, the interpretation of the Bible, the beauty explained. Interpretation of the Bible, thought Chief Inspector satisfied the prosecutor. Was it even possible to interpret the Bible who swore as much as Alice heard of Beauty Square the previous evening? But he said nothing. This was for the prosecutor to sort out once and for all. Interpretation of the Bible, said Prosecutor Randall, but decided in the very same second to move on. Never mind, tell me instead what happened to the suitcase on Bob Island at the bus station. No, it was very good to get any act. Would you, Mr. Prosecutor, allow me to say something? Absolutely, answered Prosecutor Randall. As long as what somebody says will shed some light on this business, the devil himself can have to say. Please mind your language, said Deputy, and rolled her eyes. The Chief Inspector was now completely certain they were making fun of the prosecutor. I don't think that the devil is a fully adequate description of my humble self since I found Jesus, said Peregrine. You, Mr. Prosecutor, will of course have heard that I led an organisation called Never Again. The name originally referred to the fact that its members would never find themselves behind bars again, even though there might be no lack of legal reasons for such a measure. But as of late, the name has acquired another meaning. Never again shall we attempt to break the law. Not that written by man, and absolutely not that written in heaven. Is that like bolt smashed up a waiting room, beat up on a train, and then kicked up a bus driver in his bus? Asked Prosecutor Randall. Oh dear, now I can definitely feel a certain sarcasm in the air, said Peregrine. But just because I myself seen the light, doesn't mean my colleagues have done the same. One of them has indeed gone to South America to do missionary work, but the two others came to an unfortunate end. I had entrusted Bob with the task of collecting the suitcase with the 200 Bibles on Bosa's route from Savo for Fulshamping. I wasn't going to use my Bibles to spread joy, my worst villains in the country, if you'll excuse my language, Mr. Prosecutor. Up until now, the owner of Elring Farm, Bosa, kept quiet. But at this juncture, he placed a heavy grey suitcase on the kitchen table and opened it. Inside lay a large number of Sicilian Bibles bound in genuine black leather with gold lettering, notations, 3 marking ribbons, maps in colour, and more besides. You will not encounter a more magnificent Bible experience than this, Mr. Prosecutor, said Bosa with conviction. Would you like me to present him with a copy? We must all seek the light, Mr. Prosecutor. Unlike the others, Bosa actually meant what he said. And the prosecutor must have had anything for that, because he had wavered his conviction, or his vibe talk was just intense. He accepted Bosa, I thought immediate salvation might be his only option. Can we, once and for all, get back to the business at hand? He asked. What happened to that damn suitcase in Mount Sherping? No swearing, lectured the beauty. Perhaps it's my turn again, Alice said. Well, you see, I went to the bus station a little earlier than I'd expected because Julius asked me to. Bob Island had previously phoned Peregrine in Stockholm and had been, if you, Mr. Prosecutor, will again excuse my language, a bit tipsy. And as you will know, Mr. Prosecutor, or as you may not know, because I don't know your drinking habits, but anyhow, where was I? Yes, you know, Mr. Prosecutor, how when vodka goes in, common sense goes out, or whatever the saying is. I myself, in state of inebriation, have said more I should have at a submarine at a depth of 700 feet in the middle of the Baltic Sea. In the name of God, get to the point, said Prosecutor Randall. No, blasphemy, urged Beauty. Prosecutor Randall put my hand on his brow while he inhaled deeply a few times. Alan Carlson went on. Well, Bob Island had phoned Peregrine in Stockholm to say that he was signing from Peregrine's bike club and that, instead, he intended to join the Foreign Legion. But first of all, and at this point, you ought to sit down, Mr. Prosecutor, because why I held this is dreadful. He intended to make a bonfire of the Bibles in the main square in Norrköping. To be more precise, he is said to have yelled, those damn fucking Bibles, said the beauty. No wonder then that I was set out to find Mr. Bob to take the suitcase before it was too late. We often have little time, but sometimes we have even less time than we could possibly imagine. Like, for example, on the occasion when General Franco in Spain really got blood bits before my very eyes. What has the General Franco in Spain got to do with this story? One prosecutor demanded. Nothing whatsoever, Mr. Prosecutor, other than that I let him serve as an illustrated example. You can never have too much clarity. In that case, what if you, Mr. Carlson, would bring some clarity to this matter? What happened to the suitcase? Well, Mr. Bolt didn't want to give it to my physique. He didn't really allow me to try to take it by force. Not just my physique, for that matter. In principle, I think it's a terrible way to stick to the subject, Mr. Carlson. Yes, my apologies, Mr. Prosecutor. Well, when Mr. Bolt, in the middle of everything, did visit stations, up in Phoenix, then I took my chance. Together with the suitcase, I got on a strangeless bus, which took me to Beering on Julius here. Or Yule, as we sometimes say. Yule? Said the prosecutor, as he told me to say something. Or Julius, said Julius. Nice to meet you. The prosecutor sat in silence for a few minutes. Now, you actually started making some notes to see me draw neckties between the notes. But Mr. Carlson, you paid for the bus journey with £50 banknote and wonder how far it would get you. How does that fit in with having deliberate intention of travelling to Beering and nowhere else? Ha! Said another. I know perfectly well what it costs to travel to Beering. I just have a £50 note in my wallet, and I simply had to fun with the driver. That's not against the law, is it, Mr. Prosecutor? Prosecutor Randall didn't bother to answer. Briefly, what happened next? Briefly, Julius and I, we had a nice evening together until Mr. Bolt came and tried my mobile door. If you'll excuse the pardon, Mr. Prosecutor, but since we had a bottle of vodka on the table, you perhaps never heard in my tale that that is what I had with me, a bottle of vodka. And to be honest, not just one bottle, but two. One should tell our truths about less important details. And anyhow, who can judge what is more or less important in this tale? That is for you, Mr. Prosecutor. Go on! Yes, my apologies. Well, Mr. Bolt calmed down. He realised that Roosevelt had alcohol in there. During the course of the late evening, he decided not to burn the Bibles in gratitude for taking immigration and reported. Alcohol does indeed have its positive sides, don't you think, Mr. Prosecutor? Go on! In the morning, Mr. Bolt had the worst hangover. I personally haven't been there since 1945. I rented my best friend Vice President Truman on the table to help me together. Unfortunately, President Roosevelt went dying that same day, so we had to break off the party early. That was probably bad for me because I can't begin to describe what my head felt like the next day. You could say I only felt slightly better than Roosevelt. Prosecutor Randall linked rapidly. In the end, curiosity got better. What are you talking about? Were you drinking tea with Vice President Truman when President Roosevelt died? Perhaps we shouldn't get bogged down in details. What do you think, Mr. Prosecutor? The prosecutor said nothing. Mr. Bolt was, in any case, not in a condition to help us pay the inspection shortly when it was time to travel to All Care Found the following morning. He wasn't even wearing shoes, I understand, said the prosecutor. How can you explain that, Carlson? If you, Mr. Prosecutor, had only seen what hangover Mr. Bolt had that morning, he could just well have been sitting there in the underpants. And your own shoes, Carlson? They were later found in Julius Johnson's kitchen. Yes, I borrowed some shoes from Julius, of course. If you are 100 years old, you sometimes myself go out into slippers. As you'll discover yourself, Mr. Prosecutor, wait for your 15 years. I don't think I'll survive that long, said Prosecutor Randall. The question is, whether I'll survive this conversation, how do you explain that when the inspection trolley was found, we don't smell traces of a dead body? You tell me, Mr. Prosecutor. Mr. Bolt was also the last person to leave the trolley, so perhaps he could have told us himself, if he hadn't had misfortune to die over there in Djibouti. Do you, Mr. Prosecutor, think I might be the origin of that smell? I'm not dead, that much is sure, but I am dreadfully old. Can the smell of a dead person sort of come a bit early? Prosecutor Randall was getting impatient. So far, there were less than one of the 26 bears. And 90% of what came out of the old geese was pure nonsense. Go on, said Prosecutor Randall. Well, we left the Bolt sleeping on the trolley and went for a refreshing walk to a hot dog stand, which was also run by Egg and his friend Benny. Have you also been in prison? Asked the prosecutor. No, but I studied criminology, said Benny quite truthfully, before making a story about how he once interviewed inmates in prison and then Egg grew up. Prosecutor Randall seemed to remember something down again, after which he nodded to me and allowed Carlson to go on. By all means, Benny was originally going to drive me and you to Stockholm so that we could get the suitcase with Bible to Egg. But now Benny said he wanted to make a detour by small to see his fiancée, Gunilla. Peace be with you, said Gunilla, and nodded toward Prosecutor Randall. And then went on. Benny was, of course, one who knew Egg the best. Benny said that Egg looked quite a place for Bibles. He didn't think there was anything with the top of the news and women you have to take like that. But you can't wait until eternity because when Jesus actually returns to earth, then all the chapters on his imminent return become obsolete. Stick to the subject. Of course, Mr. Prosecutor, I shall absolutely stick to the subject. Otherwise, things go badly wrong. I probably know that better than anyone. If I hadn't stuck to the subject from the Nazis into Manchuria, then I would almost certainly have been shot then and there. That would undeniably have saved us a lot of trouble, said Prosecutor Randall. Anyhow, Benny didn't think that Jesus would have time to return while we were in small land, and to the best of my knowledge, was right about that. Carlson! Oh, yes. Well, the three of us drove to Swan our first time in Egg, and that, of course, was a mistake. Yes, it was taking years and that at this point. I suppose I could wait a few days for the Bibles, that wasn't the issue. But you see, Mr. Prosecutor, I thought the bolt would come up with something stupid to get the news out of Benny. With the bolt. But never liked the idea that never again should start spreading the gospel. But of course, I didn't think they'd ever read the papers. The prosecutor nodded. Perhaps there was something that resembled logic after all. Then he turned to Benny. When you read about a suspected kidnapping of a centenarian, why didn't you contact the police? Well, the thought did occur to me, but when I raised it out on the news, they refused to allow it. You said that on principle he never spoke to me, and Alan said that he was all around the old folks and absolutely didn't want to return to Alice. Just because the newspapers and TV got this and that wrong. You never talk with the police on principle, said Sosky Banner to use this. I have had a little bad luck in my relations with the police over the years. But pleasant encounters, like Chief Inspector Harrison's yesterday, they refused to prosecute today. I am happy to make an exception. Would you like some more coffee? Yes, the prosecutor would indeed. He needed all the energy and strength he must be in some sort of order, and then to be able to present something to me before we are. Something was true, or at least credible. But the prosecutor didn't want to let Benny Ljungberg off the hook. But why did you phone your friend there when you did? You must realise he would read about your newspaper. I thought that perhaps the police prosecution weren't aware of the fact that Edwin had met Jesus, and therefore his phone lines was bugged. And you knew Mr. Prosecutor had to admit I was right. Prosecutor mumbled something, made a note, and regrettably he'd have to let that detail slip out to the journalists. But done was done. He turned back on the head. Mr. Yerden, you seem to have been tipped off to where Alan Garza and his friends are situated. Where did that tip come from? Regrettably, we'll probably never know. My colleague took information into his grave, or to the scrapyard to be exact. And what was the tip? That Alan Benny and his girlfriend had been seen in front of a small land. A friend of Buckle, I think. I was mainly interested in information as such. I knew that his girlfriend lived in a small land and she had red hair. So I ordered Buck to make his way to the road and stand outside the supermarket. And buckets have to oblige in the name of Jesus. Well, not exactly. You've been on there, Mr. Prosecutor. What's that about bucket? The religious? No, he was never there. He was, if anything, even more upset than the mob as the new direction club had taken. He talked of going into Russia or the Baltic countries and getting into the narcotics business there. Have you ever heard anything so dreadful? He might have done so, but I'll ask himself. No, that's not possible. The prosecutor was somewhat suspicious of the echo here. We had taken the thing exactly as Benny Ljungberg just assumed. In it, you refer to one of your plans as a whole day, and a little later in the conversation you swear as well. What does the Lord think about that? Ah, the Lord is quick to forgive, as your sins you won't look you've just been forgiven. Whoever sins you forgive, they are forgiven, says Jesus. Most cheated. The Gospel according to John, said Jesus to be houses and 40 recognized the work house just in the corner of the hotel bar previously. Did you read the Bible? Prosecutor Batman wondered in amazement. Chief Inspector Harrison did not answer, but smiled high as his Prosecutor Batman. I chose that tone because I wanted Buck to recognise the style of the old days. I thought that might make follow orders, explained Peggy here. And did he? What the prosecutor? Yes and no. I didn't want to make himself known to Alan Lucas and Benny as the old because I thought this is rather uncouth manner would he go down well with the group. It certainly didn't, the beauty added. How come? What did the prosecutor add? Well, he came charging up my car and was smoking, swearing, wanted alcohol. I put up a great deal, but I can't abide both resort to expletives. Chief Inspector Brown's and destroyed choke on his escape. The beauty has recently, as the previous evening, insisted on the man swearing almost out of all his breath. Harrison felt the royal surgeon when he wanted to find out the truth of this existence. Things were all right as they were, but the beauty went on. I am sure Mr. Trump already realized that, just think, he came in the car too. And then he went round waving his fist to show off, boasting, saying he's going to deal drugs in Riga, I think it was. So I roared out, yes, Mr. Prosecutor, I roared out, no weapons on my land. And they did it down on land. I don't think I've ever met all bad temper on a pleasant man. Perhaps it was the Bible that made him lose temper, Alan says. Religion can so easily stir up people's feelings. Once, when I was in Tehran, the prosecutor blurted out. Yes, it was a few years ago, that's for sure. Things were in order down there in those days. As Churchill said when we left by way. Churchill, said the prosecutor. Yes, the Prime Minister. Or perhaps it was Francis, just earlier. And later, in fact. I don't know bloody well who Churchill was, I just... You and Churchill, together in Tehran. No swearing, Mr. Prosecutor, said the beauty. Well, not exactly together. I was with him for a while, the missionary. And he was an expert at getting people to lose their tempers. And losing his tempers was exactly what Mr. Prime Minister was doing. He just realised he was trying to get back at a 100-year-old geezer who claimed to be Franco, Prudhomme, Mao Zedong, and Churchill. But Rand loses his temper did not matter. He continued, young Mr. Buck ought to run like a human thumb down the entire time he was late farm. He only arrived up once, and that was when he finally left. Then, he lowered the window of his car and shouted out, Latvia, here I come. We chose to interpret that as meaning he was on his way to Latvia, but you, Mr. Prosecutor, are much more experienced in police matters, so perhaps you have a different interpretation. Idiot, says the prosecutor. Idiot, says another. I've never been back before. Dog and rat, yes. Stalin, those two epithets about him was his angriest, but never idiot. And it's about time, says the prosecutor rapidly. Peggy interrupted. No need to be angry because you can't just lock up anyone you feel like, Mr. Prosecutor. Do you want to hear the rest of the story or not? Yes, the prosecutor wanted to hear it, says the mumble apology. Or perhaps, wanted was the right word. He says he had to hear it. So then they could go on. So, about never again, Bob went on to Africa to become a legionnaire. Bucket to Latvia started my assistance and Rags was turned to, well, no. All that's left is living with me, all on my own. With Jesus by my side, of course. Right, the prosecutor could go on. I made my way down the lake paths and soon let me go. Back at his phone and told me dreadfully they left that country. I have some questions about that, said the prosecutor. The first is you doing it on your land. Why did you go off and buy a bus a few days before you left? And why did you leave? The previous evening, the friend decided to sort out. Just like how she's on the run, unlike how she knows sisters' rights. She probably would regard as a Swedish. And in Sweden, just like in most countries, don't count that much you're a foreigner. So you would probably be deported, or sentenced to life as a zoo, or both. It's true that the bus was purchased in my name, said Sebastian. But it was actually Benny and me who bought it together, and we bought it to Benny's brothers. But he was going to fill it with Bibles. Prosecutor Brandon was down. He was no longer able to find his manners at dinner. No, with watermelons, both answered. Do you want to taste the sweetest watermelon in the world, Mr. Prosecutor? No, I don't, Prosecutor Brandon answered. I want to bring some clarity to what remains of the story, and I want to go home. I need to get through a press conference. And then I want to take a vacation. That's what I want. And now let's move on. Why the hell? Why on earth did you leave Lake Farm just when Keota arrived? But they didn't know I was on the way there, said Keota. Are you finding out following, Mr. Prosecutor? Yes, I am, said the prosecutor. Einstein might find out following if you listen to nonsense talk. Now that you mention Einstein, says another. No, Mr. Carlson, said the prosecutor. I don't want to hear what you and Einstein did together. Instead, I want Mr. Keota to explain how the Russians come into the picture. The Russians, said Keota. Yes, the Russians. Your deceased colleague Bucket talks of the Russians in your phone conversation. You complain that Bucket had called your heirs no for. Bucket answered that he thought that only why when you did business with the Russians. That is something I want to talk about, said Keota. Maybe because you don't know what to say. But I do, said the prosecutor rapidly. But the silence was unbelievable. The papers had mentioned about Russian since the first conversation himself had amended it. But then many said, "Jeśli człowiek czury obchodził kraj w football." They were stated. The Russians refers to me and my brother, then explained. Our father may rest in peace, and our uncle Rasa may he also rest in peace, were big red. So they made my brother the Russian children and the friends and acquaintances nicknamed us the Russians. That was what I just said. We Russian, of course. Like so much else, what many said had very little to do with the truth. He had simply tried to get higher than another tight spot. Many had always pleaded to be a Russian. He never handed his finest. But that was some time ago, and all Benny could remember hard was, if you smoke, you won't much good soccer. But it worked. Alan was the only one there who understood what Benny said. It was all too much for Prosecutor Randall. First, all these idiotic references to historic figures, and then people speaking Russian. Can you explain, Mr. Jordan, how you were first rammed and killed by your friends, and then those... Eating watermelon? But can I taste that melon after all? Well, of course, said Boxer. The recipe is secret, though. Or, as the saying goes, if the food is going to be really tasty, then you don't want the food inspector watching you when you make it. That was not a saying that either Chief Inspector Aronson or Prosecutor Randall had ever heard before. But Aronson had once and for all decided to keep as quiet as possible, and Randall now wished for nothing more than to bring it all to a conclusion, whatever that was, and leave. So he didn't ask for an explanation. Instead, he noted that the watermelon in question was the tastiest he had ever bit into. Peg on the Jordan explained how he had come to Lake Farm just as the bus was driving away, how he had gone to look around before he realized that the bus had probably carried off his friends, and how he had then chased it, overtaken it, and lost control of his car in a skid. And, well, the photos of the wrecked car weren't unfamiliar to the prosecutor, he supposed. No surprise that he caught up with us, Alan added, after having been quiet for a while. He had more than 300 horsepower under the hood. Not like the Volvo PV444 that took me to visit Prime Minister Airlander. 44 horsepower. That was a lot in those days. I wonder how many horsepower Gustafsson had when he turned into my car by mistake. Shut it, please, Mr. Carlson, before you finish me off, said Prosecutor Randall. The chairman had never again continued his story. He had, of course, lost a little blood in the wrecked car, or actually quite a lot. But he was soon bandaged, and he hadn't thought it necessary to go to the hospital for his limbs, a light wound, a broken arm, a concussion, and a few broken ribs. Besides, Benny did study literature, said Alan. Literature, repeated Prosecutor Randall. Did I say literature? I meant medicine. I have studied literature too, said Benny. My absolute favourite is probably Camillo Seychelles, not least his first novel from the 1940s, La Familia de... Get back to the story. The prosecutor in his appeal had happened to look at Alan. So Alan said, if you'll excuse us, Mr. Prosecutor, we told you everything. But if you absolutely want to do is talk some more, then I can probably remember one or two adventures from my time as a CIA agent. Or, even better, from my trip across the Himalayas. Do you want the recipe for making vodka from goat's milk? All you need is a beet and a bit of sunshine, and some goat's milk. Sometimes your mouth seems to go its own way while your brain stands still, and that was probably what happened to Prosecutor Randall. Contrary to what he had just decided, he happened to comment on Alan's latest nonsense. You crossed the Himalayas? At 100? No, don't be silly, said Alan. You see, Mr. Prosecutor, I haven't always been 100 years old. No, that's recent. Can we move on? We all grow up and get older, Alan continued. You might not think so when you're a child. Take young Mr. Kim Jong-il, for example. That unfortunate child sat crying on my lap. But now, he's head of state with all that entails. Never mind, Carlson. I'm sorry you wanted to hear the story when I crossed the Himalayas, Mr. Prosecutor. Well, for several months, my only company was a camel. And say what you will about camels, they aren't much fun. No, exclaimed Prosecutor Randall. I don't want to hear that at all. I don't know. And then Prosecutor Randall was silent for a few moments before saying in a quiet voice that he didn't have any more questions. Except possibly that he couldn't understand why the friends had stayed in hiding for several weeks when there was nothing to hide from. You were innocent, weren't you? But innocence can mean different things depending on whose perspective you adopt, said Benny. I was thinking along the same lines, said Alan. President Johnson and de Gaulle, for example. Who was guilty and who was innocent when it came to their bad relationship? Mind you, I didn't bring that up when we met. We had other things to talk about. But please, Mr. Carlson, said Prosecutor Randall, I beg you, please be quiet. You don't have to go down on your knees, Mr. Prosecutor. I shall be quiet as a mouse from now on, I promise you. During my 100 years, my tongue has slipped only twice. First, when I told the West how you built an atom bomb, and then when I did the same for the East. Prosecutor Randall slowly got up, and with a nod, quietly thanked them for the melon, for the coffee, and the cake, for the conversation, and for the fact that the friends at Melbourne were found had been so cooperative. narrative. After which, he got into his car and drove away. That went well, said Hughes. Indeed it did, said Alan. I think I covered most of it. In his car on the highway, Prosecutor Randall's mental paralysis gradually lost its hold. He went over the story he'd been told, adding something here, deleting something there, mainly deleting, and patching and polishing until he felt he had a nicely tidied up story that would actually work. The only thing that really worried the prosecutor was that the journalists just wouldn't believe that the 100-year-old Alan Carlson already carried the scent of death. Then Prosecutor Randall had an idea. That damned police dog. Could they blame it all on the dog? If Randall could make it sound as if the dog was crazy, unimagined possibilities appeared for the prosecutor to save his own skin. The story would then be that there never was a corpse on the inspection trolley in the Soda Manland forest, and that's why it hadn't been found. But the prosecutor had been fooled into believing the opposite, and that in turn led to a number of logical conclusions and decisions, which turned out to be completely wrong. But you couldn't blame the prosecutor for that. It was the dog's fault. This could be brilliant, Prosecutor Randall thought. The story of the dog that had lost its touch just needs to be confirmed by another source. And then, Kiki. Was that her name? I remember the days fast. It would do her to prove her skills after the prosecutor to explain what happened. Prosecutor Randall had a hold on Kiki's hand and assistant's life some years ago when he ran quietly to spirited away as a police officer, suspected of shoplifting in 7-Eleven. A police career should end because of one nothing that somebody had forgotten to pay for Randall. But now it's high time the dog hand to repay the favor. Bye, Kiki, said Prosecutor Randall, and smiled for the first time in ages. Shortly afterward, his phone rang. It was Haskell County Chief. The autopsy and identity report from Riga just landed on his desk. The compressed corpse at the scrapyard was Henry Keota, said the police chief. Nice to hear that, said Prosecutor Randall. And a good thing you phoned. Can you connect to the reception? I need to get hold of Ronnie Buckman, the dog handler. The friends of Belgrave Farm waved goodbye to Prosecutor Randall, and Alan suggested returning to Tuesday. There was, he said, a question that needed to be resolved. Alan started the meeting by asking Chief Inspector Harris if he had anything to say about what Prosecutor Randall just been told. Perhaps Chief Inspector would prefer to go for a walk with one friend at their meeting. Harris answered that he thought the account had been clear and sound in every way possible. As far as the Chief Inspector was concerned, the case was closed, and if they let it remain seated at the table, he would have to disturb. He himself wasn't free from sin, said Harris, and he wasn't about to throw the first or even the second stone in his matter. But do me the favour of not telling me things that I don't really need to know. I mean, if there shall be alternative answers to those you just gave Randall. Alan promised, and added his friend Harrison's welcome today. Friend Harrison, thought Harrison. In his work over the years, Harrison made many enemies among country's most unscrupulous criminals, but not a single friend. He thought it was about time. And so he said that Alan and the others would like to include in their friendship. He would be both proud and happy. Alan answered that during his long life he had been on comrade pushing with both residents and priests, but not until now with the police. And since their friend Harrison absolutely didn't know too much, Alan promised not to say anything about where the group's pile of money had come from. For the sake of friendship, that is. Pile of money? Asked Chief Inspector Harrison. Yes, you know that suitcase. Before it contained successfully Bibles and genuine leather. It was filled to the brim with 500-pound banknotes. About 50 million crowns. What the devil, said Chief Inspector Harrison. Swear if you like, said the fugitive. 50 million? Asked Chief Inspector Harrison. Minus some expenses in the course of our journey, said Alan. And now the group has to sort out who owns it. And with that, I shall ask Pike to speak. Regular Pike here described this here. Then he said that he would like friends and millions to stick together. Perhaps they could go on vacation together because there's nothing like long for just now to be served at a parasol drink under a parasol somewhere far, far away. Besides, Pike happens to know that Alan had feelings of a similar nature. But without the parasol, said Alan. You said that he agreed with Alan that protective rain over the vodka was one of the necessities of life, especially if we were already lying on a parasol and the sun shine from a clear blue sky. But he also thought the friends need to argue about that. Sharing vacation sounded great. Chief Inspector Harrison smiled shyly at the idea, not bearing to assume he belongs to the group. Benny noticed, so he put an arm around Chief Inspector's shoulder and asked how the representative of the police was preferred to have his holiday just served. The Chief Inspector smiled and just another answer with beauty put the damn on everything. I'm not taking a single step out on your buster. And then she was silent for a second before she added, not a snowball's chance in hell. Since then his heart couldn't contemplate taking a step without beauty. His enthusiasm rapidly evaporated. Besides, I suppose half of us even have a valid passport, he sighed. But Alan can't be thanked by his generosity with regard to how the suitcase might look best share. He thought holidays was a good idea, and preferably as many thousands of miles from direct access as possible. If only the other members of the group could agree they should sort out transportation issues. Find a destination where they weren't so fussy about visas, man and beast. And how do you intend to take on 5 ton elephant on the plane? Said Ben to Sam. I don't know, said Alan. But as long as we think positively, I'm sure a solution will appear. And the valid passports. As long as we think positively, as I said. I don't think God will actually weigh much more than 4 tons. Perhaps 4.5 at the most, says the fugitive. You see, Benny, says Alan, that's what I mean by thinking positively. The problem immediately became a whole ton less. I might have an idea, the BBC said. Me too, says Alan. Can I use your phone? Chapter 26. 1968 to 1982. Yuri Rosevich Popov lived and worked in the city of Sarov in Nizhny Novgorod, about 220 miles southeast of Moscow. Sarov was a secret city, almost more secret than the secret agent Hutton. It wasn't even allowed to be called Sarov any longer, but had been given the not particularly romantic name Arzamas 16. Besides, the entire city had been rubbed out on all masts. Sarov did and didn't exist at the same time, depending on whether you referred to reality or something else. Kind of like Vladivostok for a few years from 1953 on, except opposites. Arzamas 16 was fenced in with barbed wire, and not so was let anyone out without a rigorous security check. If you had an American passport stationed there at an embassy in Moscow, it wasn't advisable to come anywhere near. CIA agent Ryan Hutton and his new pupil Alan Carlson had practiced as spies ABCs for several weeks before Alan was installed at the embassy in Moscow under the name Alan Carlson, and with the vague title Administrator. Embarrassingly, the secret agent Hutton had completely ignored the fact that the target Alan Carlson was intended to approach was unapproachable, shut in behind barbed wire, in a city that was so well protected that it wasn't even allowed to be called what it was called, or to be where it was. Secret agent Hutton told Owen he was sorry about the mistake, but added that Mr. Carlson would surely think up something. Popov must visit Moscow now and then. But now you'll have to excuse me, Mr. Carlson, said Secret agent Hutton on the phone from the French capital. I have some other business on my desk. Good luck. Secret agent Hutton replaced the receiver, sighed deeply, and returned to less of the aftermath of the military coup in Greece the previous year, supported by the CIA. Like so much else in recent times, it hadn't exactly turned out as intended. Alan, for his part, had no better idea than to take a refreshing walk to the city library in Moscow every day and sit there for hours, reading the daily papers and magazines. He was hoping that he would come across an article about Popov making a public appearance outside the barbed wire that fenced in Arzamas 16. The months went by, and no such news items cropped up. But Alan could read about how the presidential candidate, Robert Kennedy, met with the same fate as his brother, and how Czechoslovakia had asked the Soviet Union for help in getting its socialism in order. Furthermore, Alan noted one day that Lyndon B. Johnson had been succeeded by a man called Richard M. Nixon. But since he was still getting his expenses from the embassy in an envelope every month, Alan thought that he had better keep on looking for Popov. If anything changed, then Secret Agent Hutton would no doubt get in touch. 1968 turned into 1969, and spring was approaching when Alan, in his everlasting thumbing through newspapers at the library, came across something interesting. The Vienna Opera was going to give a guest performance at the Bolshoi Theatre in Moscow with Franco Corellia's tenor and the international Swedish star Birgit Nilsson in the role of Turandot. Alan scratched his, now again, beardless chin and remembered the first and only entire evening that he and Yuri had spent together. Late in the night, Yuri had started to sing an aria. Nessun Dorma is what he had sung. Nobody is allowed to sleep. Not long afterward, he had, for reasons connected with alcohol, fallen asleep anyway, but that was another matter. To Alan's way of thinking, a person who at one time could manage a more or less good rendering of Puccinian Turandot at a depth of 700 feet would hardly miss a guest performance from Vienna of the same opera at the Bolshoi Theatre in Moscow, would he? Especially if the man in question lived only a few hours away and had received so many medals that he would have no problem getting a seat. Or perhaps he might. And in that case, Alan would have to continue his daily walks to and from the library. That was the worst that could happen. That wasn't so bad. For the time being, Alan worked on the assumption that Yuri might turn up outside the opera, and then all he had to do was to be standing there and remind him of their last drinking bout. And that would be that. Or it wouldn't. Not at all, in fact. On the evening of March 22nd, 1969, Alan placed himself strategically on the left of the main entrance to the Bolshoi Theatre. The idea had been that from such a position he would be able to recognize Yuri when he passed by on his way into the auditorium. There turned out to be a problem, however. All the visitors looked almost identical. There were men in black suits under a black coat, and women in long dresses that showed under a black or brown fur coat. They all came in pairs, and rapidly went from the cold outside into the warmth of the theatre, past Alan where he stood on the magnificent stairway's top step. It was dark too, so how on earth would Alan be able to identify a face he had seen for 2 days 21 years ago? Unless he had the incredible luck that Yuri recognized it instead. No, Alan didn't have any such luck. It was, of course, far from certain that Yuri Borisovich was now inside the theatre, but if he was, he had passed a few yards from his old friend without noticing. So what could Alan do? He thought aloud. If you have just gone into the theatre, dear Yuri Borisovich, then you will pretty certainly be coming out again in a few hours through the same door. But then you're going to look just the same as when you went in, so I'm not going to be able to find you. That means you'll have to find me. So be it. Alan went back to his little office at the embassy, made his preparations, and returned well before Prince Kalov had made Princess Turandot's heart melt. More than anything, Secret Agent Hutton had impressed upon Alan the word discretion. The successful agent never made any noise. He should melt into the city where he was acting to such a degree that he was almost invisible. Do you understand, Mr. Carlson? Absolutely, Mr. Hutton, Alan had answered. Birgit Nilsson and Franco Corelli were called back to the stage 20 times by the applauding audience. The performance was a huge success. So it took an extra long time before people who all looked alike started to stream down the steps again. What everyone then noticed was a man standing in the middle of the bottom step, with both arms in the air holding a homemade poster on which could be read, "I am Alan Emanuel." Alan Carlson had of course understood Secret Agent Hutton's sermons. He simply paid no attention to them. In Hutton's Paris it was spring, but in Moscow it was both cold and dark. Alan was freezing, and now he wanted results. At first he had intended to write Yuri's name on the poster, but eventually decided that if he was going to be indiscreet, then it should be on his own behalf. Larissa Alexandrovna Popova, Yuri Borisovich Popov's wife, lovingly held onto her husband's arm and thanked him for the 5th time for the fantastic experience they had just shared. Birgit Nielsen was pure Maria Callas, and the seats, the 4th row, right in the middle. Larissa was happier than she had been for a long time. And besides, this evening she and her husband would be staying at a hotel, and she wouldn't have to go back to that horrid city behind the barbed wire for almost 24 hours. They would have a romantic dinner for two, just her and Yuri, and then perhaps... "Excuse me, darling," said Yuri, and stopped on the top step just outside the theatre doors. "What is it, my dear?" Larissa asked anxiously. "It's probably nothing, but do you see that man down there with the poster? I have to go down and have a look." "It can't be. But the man is dead." "Who's dead, darling?" "Come on," said Yuri, and negotiated his way down the steps with his wife. 3 yards from Alan, Yuri stopped, trying to make his brain understand what his eyes had witnessed. Alan saw his greatest dim friend from long ago, lowered his poster, and said, "Was she good, Birgit?" Yuri still didn't say anything, but his wife whispered, "Is this dead?" Alan said that he wasn't dead, and if the pop wanted to make sure he didn't freeze to death, it would be best if they could immediately lead him to a restaurant, where he could get some vodka, then perhaps might eat. "It really is you," Yuri finally managed to exclaim. But you speak Russian?" "Yes, I went to 5-year course in your country's language shortly after we last met, sir." "School's called Gulag. What about that vodka?" Yuri Borisovich was never more than that, but during the last 21 years he felt very guilty for having involuntarily lured the Swedish chaplain expert to Moscow for subsequent transport of an Austria, where the Swede presumably, if murder, would have died in that fire that all reasonably well-informed Soviet citizens knew about. He had suffered 21 years because he had instantly liked the Swede and his, so it seemed, unstoppable ability to look on the bright side. Now Yuri Borisovich was standing outside the Bolshoi theatre in Moscow when it was just about 0 Fahrenheit after a warm opera performance, and no, he couldn't believe it. Alan Emanuel Carlson had survived. He lived. And he was standing in front of Yuri this very moment, in the middle of Moscow, speaking Russian. Yuri Borisovich had been married to Larissa Alexandrovna for 40 years and they were very happy together. They had been blessed with children, but their mutual trust knew no bounds. They shared everything, for better or worse, as Yuri had once expressed to his wife, the sorrow he felt over the fate of Alan Emanuel Carlson. And now, while Yuri still tried to make sense of events, Larissa Alexandrovna took command. "If I understand correctly, this is your friend from old days. The man who in fact said to his death. Dear Yuri, would it not be a good idea if in accordance with his wishes we take him quickly to a restaurant to provide him some vodka before he dies for real?" Yuri didn't answer, but he nodded and let his wife drag him over to a waiting limousine, in which he seated inside, until recently dead comrade, while his wife gave instructions to the driver. "The Pushkin restaurant, please." They needed 2 good drinks for Alan to fall up, and 2 more for Yuri to come to his senses again. In between, Alan and Larissa got to know each other. When Yuri's final took place, a shock with joy. "Now we're going to celebrate!" Alan thought it was time to get down to business. "If you have something to say, better just say it right away." "What do you think about becoming a spy?" asked Alan. "I myself am one, and it is actually rather exciting." Yuri choked on his 5th drink. "Spy?" asked Larissa while her husband coughed. "Yes, or agent. I don't really know what the difference is actually." "So, interesting. Tell us more, please, Alan Emanuel." "No, don't, Alan," Yuri coughed. "We don't want to know any more." "Don't be silly, Yuri," said Larissa. "Let your friend tell us about his job. You haven't seen each other for so many years." "Go on, Alan Emanuel." Alan went on, and Larissa listened with interest while Yuri his face in his hands. Alan told them about the dinner with President Johnson, Secret Agent Hutton from the CIA, and the meeting with Hutton the following day, during which Hutton suggested that Alan travel to Moscow to find out how things were with the Soviet missiles. The alternative Alan saw before him was to stay on in Paris, where he would certainly have his hands full with preventing the ambassador and her husband from creating diplomatic crises just by opening their mouths. Since Amanda and Herbert were 2, and Alan could possibly be more than one place at a time, he reached Secret Agent Hutton's proposal. It sounded less stressful. Besides, it would be nice to meet Yuri after all these years. Yuri still had his hands over his face, he was speaking in between his fingers. "Have you heard Herbert Einstein's language?" Yuri remembered him, and certainly people used Herbert to survive the kidnapping of Christmas camp that they sent him to. "Oh yes," Alan confirmed. And then he told the story briefly. The story of 20 years together with Herbert. About how his friend first wanted nothing more than to die. But when he finally did do so, probably at the age of 76, after seminary in Paris, he had completely changed his mind about her. He left behind him a successful wife, now a widow, who was a diplomat in Paris, and 2 teenage children. The last report from the French capital said that the family had coped well with her husband's death, and that Mrs. Einstein had become something of a favourite in important circles. Her French was admittedly dreadful, but that was part of her charm. Now and then she said stupid things that she couldn't possibly mean. But we seem to have got off our subject, says Ella. You've got to answer my question. What about becoming a spy? Is it time for a change? But Alan, my good friend, this simply can't be happening. I am more of my service to another country than any other non-military person in the modern history of the Soviet Union. It is absolutely out of the question that I should become a spy, said Yuri. I raised his glass to laugh. Don't say that, dear Yuri, said Elissa, and let her husband knock back drink number 6, as he knocked back number 5. Isn't it better to drink your popper instead of spraying it all over her? At last kindly. Larissa Popper expanded on her easily, while her husband gave his hands much on his plate. She and Yuri were both 65. And what did they actually have to thank the Soviet Union for? Yes, her husband had received lots and lots of decorations and awards, and that in turn led to fine tickets at the opera. But otherwise? Larissa didn't wait for her husband's answer, but went on to say that they were both shut up inside Alzheimer's 16, a city the very name of which would make anybody depressed. And behind barbed wire too. Yes, Larissa knew that they were free to come and go as they wished, but now Yuri mustn't interrupt her because she was far from finished. For whose sake had Yuri slaved day after day? First it was for Stalin, when he was completely mad. Then it was Khrushchev's turn, and the only sign that man showed of any human warmth was that he had Marshal Beria executed. And now it was Brezhnev, who smelled bad. Larissa, exclaimed Yuri voicing in horror. Now don't you sit there and Larissa me, dear Ilyich. That Brezhnev smells. Those are your own words. She went on to say that Alan Emanuel had come at the most opportune moment, because she had recently become more and more depressed at the thought of dying inside that barbed wire fence in the city that officially didn't exist. Could Larissa and Yuri even count on real gravestones? Or would you need coded language on them too, for security reasons? Here lies Comrade X and his dear wife Y, said Larissa. Yuri didn't answer. His dear wife might have something of a point there. And now Larissa delivered a knockout blow. So why not spy for a few years together with your friend here, and then we'll be helped to flee to New York? And once there, we can go to the Metropolitan every evening. We'll get a life, dear Yuri, just before we die. While Yuri looked as if he was giving in, Alan went on to explain in more detail how this had come about. He had, by a rather roundabout route, met Mr. Hutton in Paris, and this Hutton was a man who seemed to be close to ex-President Johnson, and also to have a high position within the CIA. When Hutton heard that Alan knew Yuri Brozovic from long ago and that Yuri possibly owed Alan a favour, then Hutton had worked out a plan. Alan hadn't listened very carefully to the global political aspects of the plan, because when people started talking politics, then he stopped listening. It sort of happened by itself. The Soviet nuclear physicists had come to a consensus, and now he nodded in recognition. Politics wasn't Yuri's favourite subject, not in any way. He was, of course, a socialist heart and soul, but if anybody asked him to elaborate, he'd run into a problem. Alan attempted to summarise what secret agent Hutton had said. It had something to do with the fact that the Soviet Union would either attack the USA with nuclear weapons, or it wouldn't. Yuri agreed that such was the situation. Either or, and not much space between the alternatives. Furthermore, the CIA... consequences associated with attack USA. Because the Soviet nuclear weapon arsenal was enough to wipe out America once. Hutton thought that was bad enough. Yuri Borisovich for the third time without a doubt it would be pretty bad if the American USA was wiped out. But how tied all the ends together, that couldn't really say. For some reason, he wanted to know what the Soviet arsenal consisted of. When he had found out, he could recommend President Johnson negotiations with the Soviet Union over disarmament. Although now, of course, Johnson was President long so no, Alan didn't know. Politics not only unnecessary, but also unnecessarily complicated. Yuri was the technical boss of the Soviet weapons program, and everything program, strategy, geography, and force. But during his 3 years of the Soviet program, he hadn't thought and needed to think a single political thought. That suited Yuri and his health exceptionally well. He had, over the course of the years, survived three different leaders, as well as Marshal Beria. To live so long in a high position wasn't a fate of the Soviet Union. Yuri knew what sacrifice Rissa had to make. And now, when they really deserved a pinch, the Dutch Black Sea, the extent of her sacrifice was greater than ever. But she had never complained. Never, ever. So now Yuri listened all closely when she said, Beloved, dear Yuri, let us together with Emmanuel contribute to the peace in this world, and let us then to New York. You can make the medals back, and Brezhnev can stuff them backside. Yuri gave up and said yes to the whole deal, except for Brezhnev's backside. And soon after Yuri and Alan, the President Nixon probably didn't hear the entire truth, but rather something he happy. Because a happy Nixon would please Brezhnev, and if they were both then there surely could there. Alan was recruited a spy by close to a place in the country was world's most secret operators. Both a military GRU and a civilian KGB director also showed at the end of the question, together with their wives. Both of them, like everybody else, in the most on the bottom step. And both of them have been in the business far too long to sound the alarm to some colleague on duty. Anybody who's doing anything to counteract need to do so in such a public way. Nobody, that's stupid. In addition, there were at least a handful of KGB and GRU informers for the actual crucial success carried out that evening. A table number 9, the man spotted the food, hid his face in his hands, waved his arms about, rolled his eyes, and was told off by his wife. In other words, a normal scene in any Russian restaurant, not worth noting. So it came about that a politically blind American agent was allowed to global peace strategy with a politically blind Soviet weapons boss, without either the KGB or GRU putting in their veto. When the European CIA boss's plan received notice that the recruitment was completed, he said to himself that Carlson had to be more professional than he seemed. The Bolsheviks would meet repertoire 3 or 4 times a year. In addition, there would be at least one annual guest performance, like the one from the opera. Thus, there were a handful of it every year when Alan and Yuri visited Yuri and Yuri's hotel suite to cook up some suitable nuclear weapons to be sent to the CIA. They mixed to see the reality in such a way that from an American perspective, the information was credible and encouraging. One consequence of intelligence was the President's staff in the beginning of the 1970s started to work on about a summit meeting, mutual disarmament agenda. Nixon felt safe knowing USA strong too. Chairman Brezhnev was not actually against the idea of the treaty because his intelligence told him the Soviet Union was the strong of the two. What complicated was that the cleaning of the CIA for intelligence report had sold some remarkable information to the GRU. She had got documents from the CIA of Paris, which indicated CIA spy based at the center of the Soviet weapons program. The problem was that the information he sent wasn't correct. If Nixon was disarmed on the basis of information from the Soviet maniac CIA Paris, then of course Brezhnev had nothing against it. But the whole thing was so complicated that it required time to think, and the myth of the maniac had to be found. Brezhnev first was called his nuclear weapons boss. The unswervingly loyal Yuri Borisovich Popov had asked for an analysis of information America originated. Because even if CIA had severely underestimated the Soviet weapons capacity, the way the documents were formulated showed a worrying good insight on the topic, which was why assistance needed from Popov. Popov read what Alan cooked up and shrugged his shoulders. Those documents said could have been written by any student in all after research in a library. It was nothing Brezhnev was physicist matter. Yes, that was why Brezhnev asked Yuri Bush to come. He thanked his technical boss and asked for his help. And sent regards to Alexandra, Yuri Borisovich wife. While the KGB surveyed literature related to weapon 200 libraries of the Soviet Union, Brezhnev continued to wonder why he should respond to Nixon's official proposals. Right up until today, the horror of it, when Nixon was invited by China, that Nazi tool. Brezhnev and Mao had totally told to go to hell once and for all. And now suddenly a risk China, USA, form an alliance against the Soviet Union. And that was not allowed to happen. So the following day, Richard M. Nixon, President of the United States of America, received official invitation to the Soviet Union. This was followed by a hard work offstage, and when one thing led to another, Brezhnev and Nixon had not only shown hands, but also signed two separate treaties. One concerning anti-missile AEM treaty, and the other concerning strategic weapons. As the signed Nixon seized the opportunity to shake back agent of the embassy, who had so brilliantly supplied information about Soviet weapons capacity. You're welcome, Mr. President, said Alan. But aren't you going to dinner too? They usually do. Who does? Asked the astounded President. Well, said Alan. The people who were satisfied by my help. Franco and Truman, Stalin and Chairman Mao, although he didn't give any news to us. It was very late in the evening, of course. And the Swedish Minister only gave me coffee. When I come to think of it, mind you, that wasn't so bad considering there was rationing in those days. Luckily, President Nixon briefed the agent's parts, so he calmly say there was regrettably not time for testicles. But then he had an American Press couldn't readily less obliged, sweet minister. So a coffee was definitely called for, and cognac to go with it. Now, this very minute, suited. Alan thanked him for the invitation and asked a double cognac if he refrained from the coffee. Nixon answered the American budget probably support both. The two gentlemen had a pleasant hour, or at least as pleasant as it could be for President Nixon politics. The American press asked about how the plane was in Indonesia. Without naming the landing, Alan described in detail how his came about there. President Nixon listened carefully and seemed to be subject to serious attention. Interesting, he said. Interesting. Alan and Yuri with each other and with the developments. It seemed that the CIA calmed down to search spy. And Alan and Yuri found that comforting. Or as Alan put it is better not to have two organizations on your heels. Then he added two friends or not too much KGG and all the other which they couldn't do anything about. Instead, it was high time up the next election for secret agent president. Considerable rustage, the middle-range story Kamchatka. Could they elaborate on that? Yuri praised Alan's delightful imagination. It made it easy to put the intelligence reports together. And that meant more time for good company. Richard M. Nixon had every reason to be satisfied with those things. Right up until the time when he didn't have any reason at all. The American loved the president, re-elected in 1970 in a landslide. Nixon won 49 states. George McGovern managed to win just one. But then everything got more difficult. And even more difficult. And in the end, Nixon had no other American president lived on before. He had to resign. Alan read so-called water cats will be available for city library in Moscow. In summary, Nixon had evidently cheated on his taxes, received illegal campaign donations, ordered secret bombings, persecuted enemies, and made use of break-ins and telephone bugging. Alan thought the president must press organization over cognac in Paris. But then he said to the newspaper Nixon, "You should have gone in for Indonesia instead. You would have gone far there." The years went by. Nixon was replaced by Gerald Ford was replaced by Carter. And all the while Brezhnev stayed where he was, just like Alan, Yuri, and Larissa. The three of them continued 5 or 6 times a year, and they had just a good time on every occasion. The meetings results to imagine report about state tasks for weapons. Over the years, Yuri and Yuri chose toned down his capacity more and more, because they noticed how much satisfied the Americans, regardless who the president seemed. And how much more then seemed to be leaders of countries. But what joyous thing lasts forever. One day, just before the Salt Treaty time, Brezhnev thought Afghanistan is help. So he sent his elites through the country and they killed the president. So the Brezhnev had no choice but to deserve. This, of course, irritated President Carter, to put it mildly. The ink on the Salt Treaty fairly dried. So Carter arranged to boycott the games in Moscow, as well as secret CIA support Mujahideen funded guerrilla force in Afghanistan. Carter didn't have to do much of that because very soon Ronald Reagan took over, and he had a much shorter when it came to general, and the only Brezhnev in particular. He does seem dreadfully angry, Reagan, Alan said to Yuri, agent spy they had our president sworn in. Yes, Yuri answered. And now we can't dismantle Soviet nuclear weapons because then there will be nothing left. In that case, I suggest we do the opposite, said Alan. That's bound to soften Reagan a bit. Just wait and see. So the next spy report advised agent Haskell to raise sensational Soviet initiative missile defenses. Alan's imagination had gone right out into space. From up there, Alan thought the idea of Soviet rockets would be able to pick off everything the US did to attack down on Earth.